All right, welcome to today's budget study session. Today's date is May 13th, time's 1 o'clock, or 1:01. Madam Clerk, would you like to call the roll, please?
I would love to. Councilmember Keldorf? Here. Councilmember Giroux is due momentarily. Councilmember Boyles?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Baldino?
Here.
And Mayor Pimentel.
Here. If you'll all rise, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll lead it.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Madam Clerk, public comment.
I have none.
All right, not going to wait on that. City Manager, any follow-up comments? Perfect. Okay, with that, I'll entertain a procedural motion for all ordinance and resolutions on the agenda by title only.
So moved. Baldino seconds.
Baldino on the second, Boyles on the first. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. Staff presentation. Can we hold off for just a minute while Councilmember Drew gets here?
Yes. Grab a sandwich.
No, thank you. I mean, I'm sure that they do.
Any word from the county on the pool? Any word from the county? Today? Yeah.
The county is gonna be there at 3.
All right, Paul, would you like to take us out?
Actually, Mayor, if I can just open it up, if you don't.
Oh,
mind, that's good.
I
Just a
deprived
quick-
you of your airtime before?
Just a quick
You have 3
opening.
minutes.
Yeah, 3 minutes, yes. First of all, good afternoon, Mayor and council members. We are pleased to present the 2026-27 budget that is balanced. This budget reflects months of work by staff across every department, careful review of our financial outlook, and thoughtful consideration of needs and expectations of our residents. Developing this budget is always an exercise in balance of maintaining essential services with investing in long-term infrastructure and looking forward to a higher quality of life here in El Segundo. This budget continues to prioritize core services that residents rely on every day, like public safety, infrastructure maintenance, parks, community programs, and economic development. I want to acknowledge the work of our department directors and all of our staff, particularly our finance staff and our chief financial officer, and all other staff that contributed in this process. It's been a long and good process, and we're anxious to share with you this afternoon some of the outcomes of that. We appreciate the council's leadership and look forward to this afternoon's discussion. As I said, this budget is balanced, and I just want to, again, I know I already thanked the department heads, but I do want an extra thanks because they really did hold the line, and that was the message from day one when Paul and I stood here about maybe 3 months ago and shared that it was a topsy-turvy world economically, at the federal level, at the state level, so let's do our best to hold the line, and I do feel like each of the departments made a major effort to do that. We're fortunate as a city to have a varied tax base, certainly a highly desirable location, an ongoing AAA credit rating, strong reserves, and actually we're able to maintain a general fund reserve of 25%, which I know has been a council desire now for at least the 4 years that I've been here. So again, thank you to everyone. Paul, I'll turn it over to you. I know you've got a lot to share.
Great. No, thank you, City Manager, and thank you, City Council members, for just your time this afternoon. I know we set aside from 1 to kind of 5 o'clock, and so we'll be here to, of course, go through this presentation, answer any questions. And before I just kind of jump in, I do want to mirror what City Manager had mentioned. I just really want to thank everybody in this room that's been involved in this budget process. As you know, the budget process starts in January, and then we prepare for this budget study session in May. And I counted over 25 meetings, at least for myself and the budget team, in preparation of this meeting. But of course, City Manager and I also have met with the various departments over probably 18 times just in preparation. So I do take pride in what we're about to present. It took a lot of effort. With that said, before I begin the presentation, I also wanted to let you know that any changes that happens from here, my team and I will definitely take notes, and then we will present that for your budget adoption. Currently, it's tentatively for June 2nd for your adoption for the budget. And we will definitely reflect any changes during that meeting. Also, additionally, some of the numbers that are not included into today's budget is a couple items. One is the Cultural Development Program, the $315,000 budget that was presented last week to the council. That number, because of timing, is not included in this proposed budget, but it will be included for the adoption. Also, the SPIA and PSSEA's agreement is going to council next Tuesday, or this coming Tuesday. So that budget is also not included, but it will be included for your adoption in June. Lastly, there were some last-minute little changes from the original presentation that was posted over the weekend versus yesterday. So while we go through this presentation, any of those changes I will flag for the council, but both versions are posted on our website so that it's available for the community as well to take a look. With that said, let me begin the presentation. It's really 3 sections, council. The first section, of course, is just a high-level overview of the budget. We'll focus on revenues, expenditures, both general fund, non-general fund. We'll talk about fund balances and then present to you the 5-year and 10-year forecast. And then, depending upon timing, if council wants to take a break, we could do that, but we'll jump into departmental budgets. And then lastly, we'll go into the CIP budget, which Director Sassoon will present for the council. With that said, let me kind of jump in here. Regards to going into next year, there's really three high-level items that I wanted to express to council. We have a balanced budget going into next year. As city manager had mentioned, departments overall held their line, and we'll go into those various details as well. But also, expenditures continue to rise faster than our revenues, and I'll go into our revenues shortly. Just for El Segundo specifically, as you know, we have a diverse revenue source, and that really helps us kind of mitigate any kind of big economic downshifts in our local economy. It's a highly desired business destination due to just location. We'll maintain our AAA rating, of course. We continue to have low debt. We only have 2 debts on our books. One of that being our POB bond that was locked in at 2.7%. So that keeps us at that low rate and also saves the city with our UAL continue to go up. We are saving close to about $2 million due to just that issuance of that bond a couple of years ago. Our reserve, as the city manager had mentioned, we'll keep it at 25%, and we will maintain our strong reserves going into next year. To just highlight for the council, the 7 items that are going into next year's budget. Number 1 is our revenues do overall remain flat, and I'll go into those details. Our UAL, our funded accrued liability, is going up to 3.9. It was at 2.9. And also the subsequent year after that, it's expected to rise to $5 million and kind of plateau there for, moving forward. And also it depends on the performance of CalPERS and their investment strategy. Number 3, the 3 labor groups at the time of this preparation, at PMA, PSSEA, and SPIA were in negotiations, but next Tuesday, both of the PSSEA and SPIA will come forth to the council for your consideration, and that budget will be included for your adoption. The HR director did mention that also the part-time salary schedule is also in the works, and that will be coming to council in a future date. And that, of course, budget is not included, but we will amend the budget when we bring that forth to city council in a future meeting. Also for next year, the plunge will be fully operational, and so that budget is included in next year's budget. The capital budget for the general fund is $2.98 million, and we'll go into the specific projects that contribute to that $2.98 million. We also use a 5% vacancy rate. As you've heard in our last meeting, we're hovering around 9.1% in vacancy, but we've historically used a 5% vacancy rate for our expenditures, for our personnel budget. And lastly, I'll go into this in our 5-year and 10-year forecast, but there's that looming structural deficit that I'll go into more details in subsequent slides as well in fiscal year 27-28. With that said, let me just jump into our revenues. So for all funds revenue, we're looking at $186.6 million. That's comprised of $108 million in the general fund, which is 58%, and $78.4 million is non-general fund. The table here just breaks down to the various funds of all funds. General fund, of course, is your discretionary funding source, which we'll go into more details in the next slide. But overall, this year, we are expected to end the year at $186.2 million. And next year's budget is expected to be $186.7 million in revenues. Going in deeper into just the general fund and the various details, our overall ending estimated actuals for this fiscal year is $105.6 million. And next year, our budget is $108.2. So that's an increase of 2.5% in our revenues next year. I won't go through each of the line items for you due to time, but just to highlight a few, which the top ones from sales tax, business license, TOT, property tax, and the UUT, those items, I'll go into more detail on the next slide. But I wanted to highlight just a few of these items that are kind of fluctuating more than normal. If we went down to line 10, other revenues, which includes real property transfers, miscellaneous revenues, and admin charges, you see that it's going up 9.4%. And really it's driven by the admin charges for the other funds. The intergovernmental is our grant funding source, and that is going up by $75,000 or 50%. License and permits, you do see a slight decrease of 104,000, and really the reason for that is we had this year commercial hauling. They paid a one-time $204,000. That's not carrying over to next year because that was just a one-time contribution. So that's why we see a decrease. But overall, if we excluded that, we are increasing license and permits by 2% next year. And lastly, fines and forfeiture line 14, you see this increase of $216,000 or 47%, and that's really driven by PD is proposing some additional cadets for next year to do more parking enforcement, and we're anticipating to bring in some additional parking violation fines through that program. With that said, I do want to spend just a little bit more time here on these top general fund revenues, Council. And of course, if you have questions, you can wait till the end or kind of jump in and ask questions as I go through the presentation. Really, the good thing is looking out to next year, the top 4 revenue sources are kind of in line with each other. They're either at 14.5 million or upwards to 15 million. So they're in line in the sense that, as I mentioned, we're able to mitigate any kind of big economic downturn. I think the big outlier here, of course, is our sales tax, this orange line. As you can see, it really peaked up in fiscal year 22-23. And that, of course, was kind of post-COVID-19. There was a lot of government stimulus that came through and just a lot of pent-up demand for spending. But then we did start normalizing, and there were just various things that happened in regards to inflation. Feds increased their rates. Businesses kind of contracted in expansion. We also had the loss of business that I mentioned during the mid-year. One of the companies that left, that kind of hit our sales tax. So overall, we did see a decrease in sales tax, but the remaining top general fund sources are expected to kind of grow, but not at a big rate. And with that said, utility users tax, that's the gray line at the bottom. We had a little dip as rates did increase, but then it normalized as we're going out to the out years. Okay, moving on to just appropriations or expenditures. Our total expenditures for next year, all funds, is $210.5 million. Of that, 51% or $107.9 million is the general fund portion, and 49% of that is the non-general fund at $102.7 million. This next table, Council, provides you just more breakdown of each of the funds. I won't go through all of them, but I do want to highlight a few that are kind of deviating more than normal. So if you look at the bottom total for our current adopted budget, we have an all funds expenditure of $218.9 million. But next year, you see a decrease of $210.5 million. So let me kind of shed some light on what that decrease is. So if we looked at transportation funds, line 3, you see that current year is $2 million. We're budgeting 1.5. And that's really because we've maximized our Prop C funding. So we're not drawing down any of our Prop C. So that we see a $500,000 decrease there. On line 5, wastewater fund, we'll go into more details when we get to the enterprise funds, but on the wastewater fund, it's actually an increase. So you see it at current year is at 8 million, it's going up to 9.7. We just heard last week from Hyperion that they're increasing their O&M budget quite a lot. It's going from what they forecasted at 2.2 million up to 3.3 million, and that increase is included in this wastewater fund expenditure for next year. And I'll go into more details when we get to the enterprise funds as well. The general fund CIP line 6 is kind of where you see that big decrease. So this year we had $28.8 million of CIP budgeted, but next year is 19.6. So there's two things. One is for next year we're proposing a budget of 2.98 million in general fund CIP. This year in our current year was 5 million. So there's that decrease there, but overall, the second item that's really showing the decrease really is not a decrease, meaning the $28.8 million of CIP that's funded this year, whatever's not done will be carried over to next year to finish up those projects, and that budget will also be carried over to next year. So that for next year, even though we're proposing 19.6, that number will increase depending upon what projects we finish by June 30th. and then whatever remaining projects budget will be rolled over to next year. On the equipment replacement fund, you actually see a bump up on line 7, and that's really due to various equipment replacement being fully funded. The main big driver is the engine, engine has been fully appreciated, and so that's included in next year's budget as well. The line 10, Development Services Trust, current budget is a little less than $1 million. We didn't budget anything for next year, and the reason for that is the general plan land use element. That budget currently sits in this year's budget. 700,000 of it is going to be carried over to next year. So we didn't want to double the budget, so we kept 0 for next year, but 700 is going to move from this year to next year. And lastly, line 13, the Rec and Economic Development Trust Fund. You see a $4.9 million budget this year, but $183,000 for next year. And the reason for that is the plunge donation that's set for $5 million this year. Of course, that's only for a one-time donation. We don't want to carry that budget over for next year, so we didn't budget that for next year. So hence, we see a decrease. So overall, next year's all funds appropriation is $210 million going into next year.
Can I ask for the transportation funding, our Measure C, our local return allocation, that 20%, we don't get that annually?
We do, but there was a project that we spent, I guess the word is, we spent all of our allocation. And so what we're doing is we're growing that reserve back up. We will get that allocation, but we want to set that aside so that we can grow that balance back up, so that we could fund future projects with that.
Are those still, do we have to do a transfer, or do those have to be related to rail and transit? Measure C initially had to be associated with transit, and they expanded from rail to high-frequency busing. I don't know, do we have to do a transfer on that at all, or can we use it however we want?
No, you're right. It is restricted.
I know.
Yes, you're right. It is restricted. And I know we used it for the Douglas construction of that pathway for that funding. And as I mentioned, because we spent a lot more than what we should have spent on Prop C, the Metro auditor and I, we decided that, okay, we're going to get that allocation, but we want to set aside until that balance kind of gets replenished.
Oh, understood. Okay, we spent
El
in
Segundo
advance.
Boulevard, not Douglas.
Oh, okay.
El Segundo. Yes.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now let me focus on the general fund expenditures or appropriations for next year. This table just breaks down by department and also shows you the percentages of the various increases or decreases per what's asked for next year's budget. I'm not going to go through all these items because we will go into details in the department budget line items, but wanted to highlight for the council that looking from top to bottom for police, you see a 9.8% increase. That's really due to some overtime requests for next year's budget. Also, they have that cadet 1.6 FTE worth of cadets that the department is asking council to consider. In the transfers outline 3, you see that decrease of $2.2 million or 15%, and that's really due to the decrease in CIP transfer. As I mentioned, current year we had $5 million. Next year we're doing $2.98 million in CIP general fund transfer, so we lowered that budget. On line 6, RPL's budget, you see a 9% increase. That has various contributing factors, but mainly it's the plunge project as well. Fully operational, but also the department is asking for 1 full-time body, which we'll go into more detail later. And for IT, you see an increase of $593,000. That's really driven by software, and so we'll go into more detail as to what that contributes. Also, if you go down to line 11, human resources, you see a slight decrease, and that's really due to salary reallocation. And lastly, on line 13, city clerk, you see a bump up in their budget, and that's because next year we have an election next year, and so we budgeted for that as well.
For IT, we're no longer allocating the IT cost to different departments too, right? We're putting that all in the IT budget?
Yes.
Yeah, so I know we're gonna, otherwise we'd end up throwing things if it was all just software.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just a reallocation as well, kind of.
For software, the way we budget software is first year, if it's a new software, we budget it in the department. And then the subsequent year, second year and on, we move that budget from out of the department into the IT software maintenance budget. And that's been the practice. And so in a way, it's a net increase, being net zero increase, because it's moving from the departments to the IT's department's budget.
Paul, are we going to get into the details of each department or just
Yes.
changes?
Yes,
Okay.
right now, I'm more at the 30,000 level, kind of drilling down towards 10,000 level, but then we'll go into the specific department budgets in the next sections.
Just to clarify though, does that mean deltas, so changes in the budget requests versus prior year, or is that like a bottoms-up build? Because I'm curious because the $1 million delta on our P&L, that's big, and I thought the plunge operationally was going to only add a couple $100,000 to the budget.
For the plunge, I know that we're total operational when you include staffing as well and just maintenance and operations, it's close to $1 million.
Okay, that explains it.
Yeah. But of course, there is a revenue offset, not directly related to the plunge, but aquatics program in general. And that's in the revenue budgets as well. This provides additional detail for the city council to understand why the budget is going up. And so if we net out capital outlay and transfers out, the true increases are salaries are going up by 5.7%. Retirements and benefits going up 12.2%. And the retirements, that's that UAL, it's going up by $1 million. And then benefits, of course, those are medical, life, medical, dental, vision. Those benefits are going up quite a bit. So that's that 12.2%. And lastly, M&O budget is going up by 1.8%.
Do we have that salary number as a prorated, or is the total cost going up 5.7 because we have more employees? Like we have more police officers than we did before. So is that why the total cost is up by 5.7%? Because I feel like we've queued pretty closely to the inflation rate on per capita salary. Is that 5% just the total revenue growth because we have more employees? Or excuse me, total salary growth because we have more employees?
It is for more employees. It also includes the proposed one body full position as well. It also includes the various, of course, COLA increases. So that in totality is just on salaries alone is 5.7% increase.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Our transfers out, just wanted to break down the additional details regards to what's the transfers out to the general fund. $12.8 million of that comprises of these four categories. The debt service fund, the POB annual payment is $9.5 million annually. The CIP general fund projects, as I mentioned, is $2.98 million for next year. The solid waste fund is budgeted $175,000. That's the continual decrease in subsidy. Used to be at $300,000. Now we're at $175,000. In the next couple of years, that will go down to zero. Senior housing fund, the senior board presented a couple of meetings ago to the city council for the next year's budget, and $200,000 is the contribution from the general fund to the senior fund that's proposed. Regards to kind of additional context for FTE, the total FTE increase, as I mentioned, is 13.93. That comprises of one new full-time position from RPL, in which we'll go into details for that ask in the department budgets. Part-time is 12.93 in part-time positions. And this next slide gives you more detail as to what those positions are in what department. As I mentioned, the first line 1, RPL, is 11.8 bodies or FTEs. One is a full-time body, and then the rest, 10.82, is part-time. That comprises of lifeguards, swim instructors, rec specialists, senior rec specialists for programs for next year. Police is asking for that 1.60 of part-time cadets for next year. And lastly, line 7, city manager has 0.51 of just part-times for some of the media division staff. Jumping into reserves. So overall, the general fund reserve will keep per our fiscal policy at 25%. That will be $26.9 million. The economic uncertainty reserve remains untouched at $2 million. The OPEB reserve has now grown to $38.1 million. The pension trust also has increased to $6.6 million. And lastly, the general fund CIP reserve remains untouched at $400,000. I do want to spend just a little bit of time here, this slide, Council, for just the unassigned fund balance. So these are, of course, a moving target because these are estimates. We first start out with what we believe we're going to end the fiscal year at. So we anticipate to end the fiscal year at $37.8 million. We propose a revenue budget for next year of $108 million, and then an appropriation of $104.9 million. So our estimated fund balance at the end of next year should be $41.2 million. We want to keep that 25% reserve, so that will net out that $26.2 million. And the remaining unassigned fund balance, if you want to call it a savings balance, we're looking at close to $15 million. And even though that number seems high, I just wanted to give you additional context to, out of that $15 million, $2.98 million of it goes to the general fund CIP. And then also any of the MOUs that needs to be finalized will be coming out of that reserve as well. Also, any of the shortfall that might happen for the donations for the plunge, because currently what I'm hearing is that we're sitting at about 2.1 million. The general fund, as you recall, we loaned out $5 million for the plunge project. So whatever shortfall will be dipping into that, 14.9 million or $15 million reserve. All future CIP also is funded through there as well. And then lastly, any kind of unplanned expenses that occurs throughout the fiscal year will dip into those reserves as well. So even though it's 15 million, that number dwindles pretty quickly. And the reason I bring that up is touching on the forecast. I have a 5-year and a 10-year forecast for the council. So looking out in the 5-year forecast, as I mentioned, next year, the blue line is our revenues, orange is our expenditures. We have a balanced budget, meaning our revenues will exceed expenditures. But if we look out to subsequent years, looking out to 27, 28, I do anticipate a looming structural deficit, meaning our revenues won't cover our ongoing expenditures. And of course, this forecast kind of assumes various things. It assumes that our revenues will grow at a 4% rate for the next 5 years, and our expenditures will rise at a 7% rate. How do I come with those two assumptions? I looked back 10 years on our actuals on revenues, and also looked back at our expenditures for 10 years. I also looked at 5 years, because as you know, the last 5 years, especially on the expenditure side, we saw quite a bit of inflationary costs going up. But in the 10-year period, we did see a 4% revenue growth and a 7% expenditure growth. And this assumes, of course, no new revenues, as in new taxes. This does not include any deal with kind of the final negotiation with Chevron. So this assumes that the TRA continues into this period. So there's quite a bit of unknowns, but what we do know is that expenditures, if everything stays the way it is, expenditures will eventually exceed our ongoing revenues. The gray line below that is just our fund balance. As we did start going into a potential structural deficit, that means we'll be starting to dip into our fund balance. And I see that in fiscal year 29-30 is basically when we will deplete all our fund balance in that fiscal year. A 10-year, this was requested by the Finance Committee to provide also a 10-year forecast. Doesn't really change much, being that the deficit continues to grow larger and larger as we go out, as it compounds. So there needs to be some kind of action regards to, or direction that we do want to do regards to how do we prevent this looming structural deficit. And so I did prepare a few slides for council, just revenue options that the council does have. Number one is the sales tax measure, Measure C. We are preparing a staff report and presenting a Measure C implementation or potential of implementation for the council on this coming Tuesday's meeting as well. So we'll have a lot more detail for you on that meeting. But as you know, our current sales tax is at 9.75. The Measure C, if it was to be implemented, will bring in, and if it was the maximum 0.75, that'll bring an additional $9 million annually to our general fund. For our TOT, our rate currently is at 12%, and a 1% increase in TOT will bring in approximately $1 million to the general fund annually. And lastly, the utility users tax is currently at 3%, depending upon which utility users tax we were to increase, but it will bring approximately $500,000 to $1 million annually. And lastly, as you know, the Chevron TRA is come to expire next year in September. So the ad hoc committee, city manager and I and the ad hoc committee has been meeting with Chevron, trying to complete that negotiation as well. And of course, that's not included in these forecasts as well.
Paul, quick question on the utility users tax. Can you give me a little bit of a primer on how that's calculated? Just because in a current market environment where it feels like utility expenses are exponentially increasing, I would think that that number would have a bigger delta.
Yeah, so it really fluctuates depending on the rates. As rates go up, of course, 3% on top of that will bring in that revenue. How is it calculated? Really, it's off of the utility bill by Southern California Edison, if it's electricity, SoCalGas, right? And they bill, when they bill it, they have an itinerary, the detail below that, and they said El Segundo 3% utility users tax, and they send that money directly to the city on a monthly basis.
Is it surprising that we're not seeing that increase more than, just based on, I know what our individual utility bills are?
Yeah, the main contributor to UT is actually Chevron. And Chevron, depending upon their usage, fluctuates depending on how they're managing their business. And even though the rates have gone up, it seems like their actual usage of the utility, whether it be gas or electricity, has come down. At least that's what we're seeing, at least for the last 2 years. But of course, one caveat is that because we do have that TRA with Chevron, we have a cap of how much, whatever difference that they don't pay in, they'll make the difference true-up payment that they do at the end of the year. So we do kind of make it up in that sense that if they pay less in utility users tax, they do make a true-up payment to the city to make up for the difference.
Thank you.
Yes.
Paul, has there been any consideration about the recently passed business license tax, where we've had discussions about the fact that we wanted nonprofits to not pay any tax, and that affected a pretty large company in El Segundo. Do we have numbers on what that delta is as far as them no longer paying because of their nonprofit status?
Yes. Since the passing of the new business license tax and with the ordinance stating that nonprofits are exempt from business license tax, that was a decrease of $800,000
Per year?
Per year, yes. Yes. I know the city attorney and I and city manager, we've been working on drafting an potential update to the business license tax. I know the mayor has asked me specifically regards to a business license tax audit. So I've actually, in the works currently as we speak, we are drafting a PSA, an agreement with HDL. They're the main go-to regards to business license tax. Hopefully I'll have it executed by the end of this month and we can start that audit. They were initially offering a 40% from what they find, but I was able to negotiate down to 35%. So we're moving forward with that execution of that contract. And hopefully we'll start that audit sometime in June or July. This table, council, was kind of to give you some additional context to where we are regards to El Segundo versus kind of local jurisdictions, also LA and the OC. And as you can see, it kind of breaks down sales tax for TOT and UUT. And the yellow denotes kind of the lowest. So if we just look at sales tax, our sales tax 9.75, Redondo Beach and Hermosa Beach is at 9.75, but the other cities are at 10.25 or 10.5. TOT, we're kind of in the median. We're at 12%. The lowest around here is Torrance at 11. Other cities are either at 12, like Redondo Beach, but mostly they're at 14. And then UUT, we are the lowest. We are at 3%. Some cities, as you can see, are double, and some cities are triple or more. Okay, I just have a few more slides regards to kind of the non-general fund. Here, first starting with the enterprise fund, both our water and wastewater fund. I think there's two items that I do wanted to tell the city council that. Number one, we will be conducting a water wastewater rate study next fiscal year. We went through the RFP process and we were able to execute the contract. So we will begin that process. As you know, that's an 8-month process. Number two is the wastewater fund. As I mentioned earlier, Hyperion had informed Elias and I last week that their budget, which was at the time 2.2 million, is now at $3.3 million. We've expressed to them what was the rationale, what was the change. It seems like from their details, their O&M is going up quite a bit. They didn't really give us any specifications or additional details as to why. They just told us that they're kind of truing up their budget to reflect what their true operational costs are.
Paul, question on that.
Yes.
I think I would know the answer to it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So I can assume there's no guardrails whatsoever on what LA and Hyperion can charge us. They could sit there and say that's $15 million, and there's quite literally nothing we can do about it on the surface to fight it back because they have a monopoly on the business. Is that fairly accurate?
Unfortunately, it is accurate, yes.
So the total extortion that happens on a yearly basis from them will continue until we decide to do something about it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Eventually.
Yeah, I think our remedies there are only political, right? We have to work with the city of LA, but it's extortionate. That's off a 90% pay increase previously,
Yeah.
90% salary increase, or excuse me, cost of sewage increase. So our rates have more than effectively tripled in the 6 years since their last rate increase, or their first increase, 2020.
Can I assume that every other city doing business with them is in the same boat right now?
Yes.
So wouldn't it make sense? I'm sure they're as irritated as we are.
To be
I know if
clear,
I was their CFO, I would be irritated, yes.
our LA County customers on the east side, their annual cost per user is going to increase by 20% and will still be under $400. Our annual cost per user for LA City will be almost $900 for an inferior service. It's incredible.
So they're basically trying to balance their budget through rate increases at Hyperion.
Yes.
All right. I guess I understood it well.
I mean, and to some degree, to probably a significant degree, every time we ask for operational improvements, that cost just gets pushed down to users. So everything that is happening there to make our residents suffer less is something that we are essentially then being asked to pay for.
Yes. It just gets passed down to the community. Yes, unfortunately. And as I mentioned, the water wastewater study will, of course, evaluate, and we will come back to City Council in regards to the Prop 218 process and what that rate increases potentially will be, and we'll have that dialogue probably in about April of next year as well. Regards to kind of the special revenue funds, the transportation fund, we're budgeting $1.5 million. The public safety special revenue funds, that's mainly the Coupa funds, asset forfeiture and COPS funds, that's $2.8 million next year. Other special revenues, that comprises really state and federal grants, $1.1 million next year. And then the senior housing fund, $16,000 for next year for their budget. So total $5.5 million for special revenue funds that's budgeted for next year. On our debt service fund, there's the Douglas Street gap closure, and our annual debt service payment is $507,000, and that will mature in 2035. And then our pension obligation bond, that annual payment is with interest is $9.7 million, and the final payment will be in 2040.
Can I ask, we had asked previously if there was any advantage to trying to prepay the Douglas Street gap closure, that 30-year bond that George Hoops loved. Is there any benefit to that, or are we paying it
I
just-
wouldn't recommend that, Council, being that it's a low yield, and we wouldn't make that up in,
Just checking.
with paying that cash down. Yeah. Okay, just the last slide before we jump into department budgets. This is just our internal service funds. The equipment replacement fund, it's budgeted at 13 million. As I mentioned, it's an increase from 10.8 million this year. And really the big increase is just because the engine for fire, that's really contributing to that. It's fully depreciated, and hence we see that increase there for next year. General liability and workers' comp fund, it's in the negative, and it's been in the negative for the past 10, now 11 years going into next year. This is one area, if we had a surplus, this is where I would recommend us to patch, but it's the general liability fund is $7.5 million in the red, and also workers' comp fund is in the red, $3.8 million. From what I'm hearing from the HR director, that we're doing a lot better job with workers' comp too, as we kind of have programs to kind of bring any employees out on leave with workers' comp, to kind of have programs to bring them back. But overall, the fund itself, both funds are in the red, and it's been in the red. Okay. All right, well, that concludes kind of the overarching big picture going into the budget. And if council doesn't have any other further questions, I'll start going into the individual department budgets, and I will try to answer any questions from the council, but I, of course, have the directors and their analysts to help provide additional context if I can't answer those questions as well.
Real quick, I think on the, we kind of already brought up a little bit, the business license taxes, obviously, we had that on a ballot, we redid it, increased it. That was supposed to kind of help us out a little bit, and it does not seem to have done that job. Is that mainly because of that little loophole? That little loophole that's about that big?
Yes.
Is that kind of it?
When the measure was proposed, it was going to bring in $2 million annually.
Right.
But what happened was, after it was passed, because of the loophole or the nonprofit section, one of the larger nonprofits in town was not paying, don't have to pay their portion, which was close to $700 and I believe $760,000.
Okay.
Yeah. We do annually increase the business license tax, but it hasn't, the revenue that was anticipated from that measure hasn't come in because of that stipulation that was in there regards to nonprofits being excluded from paying business license tax.
I would add, we've asked for cleanup on several items within that measure for the last year, and we haven't seen a draft yet. So, I mean, we asked for the business license tax audit in September 16th of last year, and now it's going to be done in June. So, we don't like to yell and scream up here, but
one thing I do want to add to that, Mayor, is that part of my staff, I have a revenue inspector, and she's done a phenomenal job. Really, kudos to her. Her part of her job is not all day, but part of her job is to go out and do these audits. And she was able to, and I don't know where Dino is, but he emailed me the numbers. She's collected over 268,000, right? 280,000, just doing her own kind of research, going out to the businesses, making sure that they're in compliance. And so she's done a great job in finding, any non-compliance. But I think because of the size of our city and the scope, hiring somebody like HDL makes sense, and we'll get that executed soon.
I suspect when we find out how much they find, we'll see how great it was.
Yes.
I don't want to get in the weeds on this, but is there any coordination between the fire department? Because I know they do annual inspections of businesses for fire purposes, to come in, take a look around. Is there a communication between the departments if there's a office that has a plethora of chairs and
Yes, so when they do their annual fire inspection, they do ask for a business license, because on their iPad and their kind of
Yeah.
task list, they do have hey, check for a business license. If they don't, they automatically forward that a business to our
They
business
check
license.
to see if there's a license. They don't check to see how many people are supposed to be included on that license. Because we went through this before.
Yeah, I don't believe they do that.
I don't believe it either.
So, yeah.
Okay.
But they do let us know, at least on the finance team, and then we will go out, of course, and reach out to them and do our audit, yes. And do our head count and whatnot, square footage.
All right, thank you.
All right. For citywide expenditures, and this is really focused on the general fund, these are just categories that are just going up without really much contractually. It's going up contractually, whether it be COLA increases due to the MOU, the group insurance, as I mentioned, medical health, they're going up. The UAL has gone up. Our standby pay, that was an MOU adjustment this year, so that, of course, is in next year's budget. Contract services, just due to CPI, contractually obligated increases. Electricity, we've seen go up, and telephone, of course, is also, we've seen increases there.
We should see savings by leaving ICRMA though, correct?
For next year, yes, we will see it. But we also have a tail that we need to pay ICRMA, but even though with the tail, we are gonna have savings next year, yes.
Paul, how much do we spend in total telephone and data as a city?
We pay full, I don't know the exact number, but last time I ran it was close to over $450,000. I was gonna say 468,000, but it's a big number,
That seems really excessive for our head count.
yeah. So part
And
of.
I like, the reason I ask is every P and L that I'm looking at lately, that number keeps going down year over year per capita, not up.
And so part of the telephone audit, our landlines is technology that's, of course, dying. And so what the IT team has been doing is actually auditing these landlines to see if we can eliminate these landlines. And hopefully we can see some decreases in those. Then, of course, our budget will decrease as well. But a lot of the cost is kind of the landlines. And so we, as I mentioned, we're auditing that to see how we can manage that and pay it properly.
Can we add that to the finance committee list, please?
Yes.
What was that total number? 468,000? So $1,500 per employee per year in telecommunication costs? Yeah, I think that's worth adding to the finance committee roster.
Yeah, it is a large number. And I feel that it's really the landlines, as you know, there's certain landlines that we cannot cut, whether it be in the elevators or dispatch related. And so I think there's that, but also we're moving more to this voice over IP, VoIP systems, which are more Ethernet based, not landline based. So we should see a drastic decrease, and hopefully maybe this time next year when I propose to the city council in regards to telephone from the telephone audit. Or I'm staying optimistic that we should be able to see some decrease there.
Are we paying someone to do an audit?
We are, because it's very labor intensive from what I've been told. Do you know how much, Todd? I forget. Yeah. But it is really, you got to manually look at every line and see where it goes and trace it that way. There's just no way, or we just can't cut it and assume that if nobody's picking up on the other line that we don't need that. From what I've been told, it's a very manual process. Yeah. And we haven't done an audit in a very, very long time. All right. This table was presented earlier, but just wanted to highlight again regards to some of these budgetary increases or decreases for the departments that are being requested for next year. And so let me begin the various department budgets. We'll start with City Council, and the format is relatively the same, meaning you'll see the table on the right top. That the first line is, of course, a proposed budget for next year. The line below that is the current adopted budget. And then that yellow or line is kind of the difference and what that is, so that you can kind of see what's going up, what's going down on the personnel M&O side as well. And then what I did was, of course, this can get very detailed, but instead I tried to keep it and capture some of the high-level items and items that I felt that City Council would want to at least discuss or take a look at. So we've kind of did not touch every little item. For instance, dues and subscriptions. I know this one's an item for City Council here, but most departments, as City Manager and I, we went through every line item. And if they didn't spend the last 2 years, we were asking the departments to go ahead and decrease those budget line items or justify why they need that budget for next year. So we went through our due diligence from the smallest line items to even the large items as well. So these bullets that we're going to go through are just really high-level highlights for the council. With that said, for City Council, the budget for next year is going up by $4,000 or 2%. Well, it's a decrease on your M&O side. We're decreasing your dues and subscription by $2,000 because there were some dues and subscriptions that the council was not opting into. So we went ahead and decreased that line item. For the city attorney, the budget for next year is going up by $24,000 or 3%. Most of that, of course, is in the M&O side. The increase is $19,000 in the legal counsel, $15,000 on labor negotiations, being that there are still some outstanding labor negotiations. But then we also are decreasing the code enforcement and legal counsel by $10,000, being that there wasn't a need for the whole budget for that next year.
Paul, does this include all external counsel as well? I can't remember.
Yes.
Okay. Years past, David, we'd asked Mark for a just breakdown on all legal expenses as part of a review process. You remember that? About the same time we did the city manager review. We're probably due for something like that again. Thank you.
And if we could have the historical, like last 5 years, so we can see what that growth is and see if we find any patterns, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Thanks.
City Attorney, question for you, just because this is your neck of the woods. If Charter City goes on the ballot, do charter cities incur greater legal costs because their attorney has to curate an individual document as opposed to leaning on general law? And if so, should we be accounting for that in a budget?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I think that would be a minimal additional expense. So I think it would be nominal, if anything. I don't really see it increasing our legal services at all.
Okay. And we've had reasonably low levels of litigation or non-internal litigation the last few years. Does this reflect on unusually low, because we've got some torts I know going on now? Is this a broad trend line in line with a 5-year spread, or just within our sort of 2-year holiday of not being sued by people?
It's, from my perspective, it's hard to predict the future, but I'm not aware of any like major fluctuations. So I think this is in line with what's happened in the past.
Thank you.
All right. So city attorney will bring back more details regards to historical and legal counsel breakdown. Okay. For city clerk, their budget is going up by $38,000 or 6%. On the personnel side, the reason for that decrease is we made some updates on just the personnel budget, and because there was some vacancy, we went ahead and lowered the kind of the step back down to kind of a C step. So you see that kind of decrease on the personnel side. On the M&O side, really it's an election year next year, so they are budgeting $83,000 for next year. I think historically we never spent that money, but of course anything that comes under, it will just go right back to the general fund reserve. On the city manager's budget, it's going up by $71,000 or 2% increase. On the personnel side, as I mentioned, the department is asking for additional part-time kind of hours, basically, for a more senior video technician. That's a cost of $35,000. On the M&O side, overall M&O is decreasing, and the main reason is this year we had a one-time budget of $100,000 for the staffing assessment. That, of course, is not going to carry over to next year, so that's a decrease of $100,000. The staffing assessment is still in review, and we will bring that to council in a future council meeting. Also for media division, they have some minor increases in supplies and whatnot, but overall, they also have a decrease in some of the outdated software that they said they'd no longer need next year. So overall, they're decreasing by $7,000. And then they do have some new asks going into next year. The Econ Dev division is asking for a PitchBook database. That's a $30,000 software that they are requesting. And then also a $27,000 increase in their advertising and publishing for next year as well.
I got a question. So the senior video technician, is that adding somebody or is that upgrading? Like, I didn't realize we had a deficiency there. It seems like we have great people on that.
It's more just part-time, not increasing, but just additional position body hours, sorry. Hours.
Okay, part-time hours. And then PitchBook, love it. Is there a government discount or no? That's a
Negotiate. Just wait till the
Yeah.
end of it. Wait till the end of a quarter and negotiate. That guy's making $29,000 on that deal that cost him $1,000 to provide.
yeah. And the other thing I'd say there is it's great. It's a great database, assuming we actually activate it, do something meaningful with it. So I'm sure you have a plan there, but I'd love to hear more about that later.
I'm going to throw a piece of advocacy out there. Many moons ago, I lost the battle in advocating for an assistant city manager, so I will not do that at this spot. But I think that we mischaracterize what our staff does because they are filling roles that the city manager cannot do because we're asking them to both run an organization and be our external voice. So I would advocate, and I will advocate later on in the discussion for some form of chief of staff role to be budgeted in here. So every time we have an issue with an external agency, we're not sending our head of public works to go deal with Hyperion or something like that. Like there is clearly two roles within the city manager's office, one managing the city internally and one managing it externally. And we do those with 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag right now because we don't, I think, have the manpower within that senior role. So I will advocate that later, but I just want to highlight that for everyone that I think there's a chief of staff role and some formulation that I think that would be prudent for us.
Okay, next department is my department, finance department. Overall, our budget is relatively flat, 16,000 increase next year, or 1%. On the personnel side, as you can see, there's a decrease, and really that's contributing to kind of reallocation for my time, but also some of my staff time to the general liability, workers' comp, but also the water and wastewater fund for kind of the upcoming fee or rate study that we're going to conduct. On the M&O side, just really two big items, Council. First one is the $60,000 for a fee study next year. So not only are we doing a water wastewater rate study, but we want to conduct a fee study because that will be our 6th year for our fee study. So that we want to do that and then reevaluate and capture any costs that we're not doing on our current fees. And also the second item is just an iPad for the business license field work. As I mentioned earlier, the inspector goes out and having a tablet or an iPad with LTE, we can immediately ask the business to submit their business license right then and there instead of coming back, asking them for, coming to our website. So we felt that it would be very useful for the staff to have that readily available and get them signed on right then and there. On human resources, overall, their budget is slightly going down, 53,000, 3%. And really, it's their personnel budget. It's another, we're updating their reallocation. Mainly, it's the risk manager position is being allocated more to the general liability and workers' comp fund. And their M&O budget is flat, basically, for next year as well. For IT, their budget next year is going up $593,000, 14%. And the real driver there is kind of their M&O and their software maintenance. So of that increase of $578,000 in their M&O, $535,000 is software maintenance. So to give council additional context to that, $356,000 of that is really what we call GASB 87 And this is a new GASB requirement, an accounting requirement for capturing liability. So any software that's more than a year contractually obligated, we want to capture that as a liability on our books. So we budget for that. So it's not really a cash expense. It's more of an accounting entry, but we budget for that. So that's that $356,000. Now, $151,000 is software maintenance specific related. And earlier I mentioned to the council that first year when we get new software, we budget it in the department and we transfer that budget into IT. And so that software budget of $151,000 is transferring software from the departments into IT. So it's not new software going into next year. And then lastly, the $28,000 is just regular CPI increases across various software. All right, community development, their budget is pretty flat, $16,000 next year, less than 1% increase. Their M&O is really where it's actually going down, and the reason for that decrease is really driven by the True North and Wildan plan check and inspection. The director each year lowers that, and then after 6 months, around mid-year, we reevaluate it and see if there's an increase in need for plan check and inspection. Then we go ahead and come back to council for additional appropriation. Of course, this has a revenue offset because plan check is recovered through plan check fees and inspection fees. So there's no immediate impact to general fund. And also, there was a decrease in their equipment replacement charge of $10,000. Hence, their overall M&O budget is decreasing next year. Moving on to police department. The police department's budget is going up by $2.4 million. It's an increase of 10%. There's various contributing factors. We'll start with personnel. So the department is asking for some increase in overtime. The unforeseen events overtime, they're asking for an increase of $244,000 next year. And also their overtime for reimbursable overtime and special events, they're asking for an increase of $182,000 for next year. For cadets, as I mentioned earlier, there's 1.6 FTEs of part-time cadets, but of course this will be an offset due to doing more parking enforcement for the city. They also want to do some changing in their personnel. They want to remove a PSO and add a police assistant, which is actual decrease in budget of $12,000. They do want to propose to reclassify their executive assistant to a senior executive assistant, and that cost is $3,000. They also want to reclass a admin specialist to a senior admin specialist 1/2, and that cost is $7,000.
Wait, so Paul, where is the 2.4? If you're breaking down, maybe these are just the highlights,
Yes.
but you're adding overtime, you're adding some cadets, but you're showing a difference of 10% increase in the budget.
Gotcha. Yes, so for police, it's really, there's the overtime increase. That's a little less than $500,000. The POA's increase in the MOU, 4%, that's included in there as well. Also, the UAL, that's another big contributing, that's almost $500,000 that's driving that number as well. It's $1 million increase next year, but 50% of that, or $500,000 of it, is specifically to police department's personnel budget. So when you combine all that, plus just the regular COLA increases, that's how you get to that 10 or 16% increase, but really $2.2 million increase for next year.
What staffing number are we using to calculate this? Are we using 67 or 62 with an overhire?
67, right? Yeah. 67.
Okay, but our staffing level is 62. We were at an overhire to get to 67. So we are fully staffed. Is that accurate?
We are 67 minus 2 right now. Minus 3.
So we have 64 right now. We have 3 vacancies, one due to not making probation, another resigning, and a third not making training. So we're sitting at 64 as I speak today.
Okay, and your plan is to go back to 67.
Correct, yes, sir.
I think we only went to 67 before. We were talked about going to 66, and then we had one who was already in the pipeline. It was a lateral move. It was
We
already in the
hired,
pipeline.
he's working, he's on a motor now,
Yep.
actually, yeah.
I do think, again, that we need to kind of do a little history lesson on this,
Sure.
because
Sure.
we were, almost all of us are up here on this.
Yep.
So, because I want to go fact-based, all right?
Yep.
So back when previous chief came up, stood right where you are, and he says, hey, I would like authorization to go to 72 on a provisional basis because of the fact that it takes so long to hire the right people that I'll never be able to do it in the time frame that I have. And we authorized that with the idea between that and retirements and things that 62 would eventually be the number. You're kind of over hiring and then you can just kind of fill in. That doesn't seem to be the method that we're using right now. Because right now it seems that it's either 72 or 67 or else we're understaffed. And that's not the case. So I want to make sure, and I don't blame you for asking, don't get me wrong, I'm not on you for it. I just want to set the baseline
Sure.
here of what we actually did and what we actually agreed upon. That's what we did.
Right, so I was in the conversations last year and we talked about that. So part of the struggle that we deal with is we're always playing catch-up. As I mentioned, right now, we have 64. However, of those 64, 3 are trainees, so they're not really working the field. I have 1 on military leave, so that's another one, that's 4. Then I have 2 additionals that are on long-term IOD. I don't anticipate them coming back. And then I have potential retirements looming this fiscal year, 2 or 3, so you're always playing catch-up. So if I look at the number of bodies that I have available to work the streets, it's probably right now at 54. When you take away the injured folks, military leave, vacancies, and light duty too as well, meaning they cannot work the field right now.
Right, understood, but again, we're looking at it from from budgetary cycle,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
So we did all those things knowing we were going to be a little bit up. But it seems like we're playing catch up and we're still up 10%. And then the question always comes into overtime, right? So the
Right,
unforeseen
right.
circumstances.
Right.
I think you know where I'm going with this. It's
Yeah.
difficult every time that we're seeing the
Sure.
same thing. So whether we say go to 72, 67, 68, 62, 57, we're still seeing the same numbers.
Yeah, if you could give me a second, I can
Sure,
explain what
absolutely.
we've been trying to, and I had a slide ready to go, and some reason it doesn't ever make it. I'm trying to give you a picture, like before I even get to my operational needs, there's 600,000, if not more, of overtime that's used. 218,000 of that is for special events. So that would be 4th of July, all of the parades we have, all of the runs. Candy cane alone cost us $50,000 this year. That's 218,000, roughly, for all the events. And the staffing level is already too low for me, for my comfort level. Cannot go any lower. So if we want to continue to have those events, it's going to cost us roughly even more this year because you got a 4% increase coming. Currently sits at 218,000. Then we have what's called reimbursable overtime, where the city gets all the money back. But the problem with that is it does not go back into my budget. It goes back into the general fund. That's $318,000. That's coming from Chargers. We work for the Chargers. That's $56,000 to do their training camp. They fully reimburse the city for that. Lakers, although I'm hearing the Lakers, South Bay Lakers may be leaving. Last year, that was $82,000, quite a bit. Chevron, we have an ongoing contract with them to go help them out, $53,000. Host overtime, which is funded by the county, that's roughly $76,000. Then we have MET, which is a mental evaluation team, that's $34,000. Then we have the Office of Traffic Safety, which helps us with DUI. This is all reimbursable. Total of $326,000. That's all, that comes back to the city, but once again, that goes into my bottom line when you're giving me the overtime available to use before I get into my operational needs when it comes to the staffing levels we need to maintain.
Yeah, so quick. So Paul, why can that not be put back into that line item? If it's $326,000, or if we're spent getting it back and it's not appearing on police's part of the budget, then it's not showing me the whole picture.
The reason we don't is because we don't credit back the overtime line item. The proper way to do it is we do have a separate revenue line item, and we just capture it there, if that makes sense. It's just sitting in a different line.
Okay, so essentially this number instead of 27.3 is 26.9.
Yes, if you wanted to net that kind of reimbursement.
I think it would be, I think fair at the very minimum to mention that in these budget discussions. That's all.
We could do that in the future to help
Okay.
kind of narrate, and this is not only for PD to fire to as well, but
Yep.
there's always that reimbursable, and we could do a better job just kind of showing that delta.
I think so, because if we're always gonna question, and we always will, the overtime numbers and how we're getting there, and there's a reimbursable element to that, well, it's only fair that that number shows up as well to show that, okay, it's a net zero on that piece. Okay?
And again, Councilmember, this is before I even speak about some of the unforeseen stuff we deal with, the multiple protests we have in the city, that we don't staff them full staff, meaning we have a lot of folks come in. We have enough to just deal with an issue should it arise. I mean, enough. To, again, where my comfort level would be a lot more. But considering we have overtime concerns and constraints, I do the minimum. So we had about 4 or 5 big ones this year. The smaller ones, we don't staff. The ones that happen weekly, monthly, whatever it may be. It's the ones we're foreseeing it's going to be nationwide, potentially can be issues for us. Then we have, as you know, a lot of really high targets in the city. So if we're made aware of a threat, we're going to add extra police services to that area. Cannot do that with just 3 or 4 patrolmen that work the streets. So that incurs more overtime for us.
Let me ask this, do we have consensus to reiterate that 66 is our magic, don't overhire past 66 right now? Because we were
That's
saying that
option.
before, and we
Yeah.
took the 7th one because we had somebody already in process crossing the finish line.
Mhm.
Are we okay with 66?
Well, that's what I was trying to figure out, Mayor, is how many, so there's 89 full-time and 6 part-time, so call it like 93 total personnel proposed for next year. And that, how many does that include in sworn?
Well, this would be 66 sworn, and then you're adding PSOs and cadets and.
67 is the number that we're proposing it at.
Yeah, and we're counter-proposing.
Oh, yeah.
To be clear, sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, I'm just trying to get my head around, as years past, the number, it's fluctuated quite a bit, just what our total cost is per personnel is also, but, okay, 67. You're saying you want to hold the line at 66?
It's 66.
Mhm.
So if you recall, last year, we came in requesting 72, and then it dropped to 67. And again, I think last year we mentioned.
72 was the number we came up with.
Right, correct. And we have never seen the 67, even 65 in fruition where I have them actually working. That's what we're trying to build towards, to give you an idea as to what it looks like. Because my ultimate goal is not only to add more officers for traffic safety, but the community piece, because we need more officers to help out with the community lead officers that go out there and do the extra work that needs to happen. Right now, we've really filled up our bare bones, meaning patrol, detective bureau, motor officers, and that stuff, and everything else is going to add the additional layer that this community deserves.
Any other council input?
No, I think we're all on the same page.
Councilmember Keldorf?
I think you all are all on the same page. I mean, from a hiring perspective, I would just as soon take the chief's 67 as 66, just to give him that additional freedom to make sure that he's fully staffed and understanding that there are a lot of other factors that go into that. So I would hold the line at 67.
I think what we had done in the past on that was it was at 66. However, we found this amazing candidate who wanted to come in. There's always a discussion period on that. So I think that might be, that sounds a little bit more like we talked about last time, so.
Madam Clerk, we don't vote on budget items, right?
No.
we sort of come to a mishmashy,
Discuss.
we blob forward, we
And
muddle.
Staff's gotta figure it out.
And that 67th hire is amazing, by the way, if you meet him. He's just,
Sure.
I'm telling you, he's a phenomenal officer.
Small-
You would-
tell us,
Yeah,
smells
However,
amazing.
if you're getting a traffic ticket by him, he's not, but he's a very good officer. I can tell you this, very proud we had him, and he's still here.
Is he riding his bike home every day?
Not yet.
Good.
He's new to he's got a long ride, and it's
I-
really,
just
as you
getting rid
know,
of the T and the yet on that
not,
phrase.
not too
Because the
safe.
answer is no.
But
Yeah,
just
not too
to clarify again,
Sure.
you don't have 67 sworn officers. So he's affectionately 67, but in
Well,
reality,
currently,
he is.
He's lower than that because we've hired more since then. He has some seniority now in the years since I've been here because we've hired so much. So he's probably number 60.
And you have how many sworn officers currently?
64.
Thank you.
Yeah. Including myself.
I think we, even though we don't vote, I think the preponderance and the majority of us, or 4 of us, are saying let's hold it at 66 and not instead of 67. So do not hire past that number.
Understood. Okay. Anything else, council members and mayor?
Thanks for explaining it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Not as tall as Chief. Just want to make sure, Mayor, that it seems that we're going to budget at 67, but the direction to the chief is don't hire beyond 66. So budget 67.
I mean, this would be the first time I think we've actually even budgeted that high, because the budgetary number from the former chief was to keep it at 62, and would use that as our waypoint, but because we had salary savings, we were over hiring. So I think that what we're saying is, for clarity, that I don't want to screw up the pivot table here, but 66 is our do not hire above, whether we reflect that as a budgetary number or say it's 62 plus 4, however we want to do that.
Gotcha.
I thought I heard the chief say is 59 when you net everyone out. So,
Oh, I think that's what he has to actually utilize.
but
'cause
how many are we paying for right now? 59 or all?
we're
66?
paying for 54 right now, but because we have 66, or 67, but 3 are gone. We had
So we're
one who
paying
didn't
for
make it
64.
probation, 1 resigned, and I don't remember the status of the
I
other
think the
one
budget
hanging
should be what we expect, actually. So if that's 66, or if it's 63 based on hiring patterns, I just think we have to be accurate with the budget.
Yeah, I just, that's why I bring this up. I wanted to just make sure we're accurate.
Yeah, the historical intent was because we had that extreme ballooning in crime a few years ago, and the previous chief was adamant that 62 was an okay number, and when we'd sort of overruled him and said we're going to go past that, but the idea is, in theory, if we return to historical norms on crime rates, that we would attrit back to 62. But however we want to reflect it is, I leave that to your expertise.
What I'll do is, for your budget adoption, I will have a cleanup and just let you know what the budget is and how much, so that we're all on the same page. Okay, just kind of finishing up here for PD. They just have various M&O budgetary increases. The admin division is asking for some furniture and supplies. It's 87,000, but really it's going to be covered through bail and evidence funds. It's not really general fund. And also in the communications center division, the SBRPCA, the dispatch, that contract is going up 6.9% next year. So that cost is $151,000 for next year. All right, next department is fire department. So fire's budget for next year is $658,000. It's a 4% increase. On the personnel side, the bigger increase, of course, is the overtime that the department is asking for. So they have various unplanned professional development, training, and retirements coming up that the department is requesting for an additional overtime of $139,000. As you are aware, there's also just MOU increases that needs to take into consideration, hence why the department needs to increase their overtime budget. On the suppression division, there's a decrease of $83,000 for equipment replacement charge. The annual increase to the dispatch is another $31,000. This is fire's portion because it's split between PD and fire. One new ask that the department is asking for is 2 new mobile radios, one for the Engine 33 and one for backup. That cost is $30,000. On the prevention division, there's a decrease in their contract services fire plan checks. That's $50,000. And on that footnote below that, as I was reviewing this, I noticed it was just my oversight. The increase of $12,000 was not for plan check contractor services. It was actually electricity utility cost budget that we're bumping up to $12,000, and that's really just correcting the budget because historically the electricity line item was under budgeted, so we're correcting that for next year. And when it says offset by revenues, that's pertaining to the bullet above that for plan check, not for, of course, the utilities for electricity. And then the emergency management division, also a decrease in just their professional technical for their specific training as well. All right. Lastly, for the division or department, there is AB 1646, and that's been an ongoing discussion with the fire department and the council as well. The budget that's included that's currently proposed for next year just carries on the current program into next year. So at this time, when the final decision is made regards to which direction we're gonna do the AB 1646 program, we will come back to City Council and revise that budget accordingly. Okay. For Public Works,
Anybody have anything we want to discuss on the fire department before we mow through this?
The cost of what's being proposed for AB 6446 was like 1.2, 1.3. So where, if you come back and say, okay, we're going with this plan, where's that money coming from?
so the program AB 1646 is in the Coupa fund. It's not the general fund. It is paid by Chevron. The current budget that's currently, for the current program, we budgeted 800, I wrote this down just for my notes. $863,000 was budgeted this year. And so for next year, that same 863,000 is budgeted for next year. But to answer your question, Mayor Pro Tem, if regards to that 1.2 million, or I know there was a number 1.6 or even high as up to 1.7, once the decision is made regards to how we want to implement or revise the AB 1646 program, we will come back to City Council and revise that budget according to how that program and the cost for that program, and it will be paid by Chevron. Yeah.
Please.
Paul, how much of the personnel 6% increase is reflected by the MOU increase for next year?
Ooh,
I suspect
it's
that
a
most
2% increase for FFA. I don't want to misspeak, and I'm trying to run some numbers in my head. I don't know the top of my head.
most of that growth has to be because we made them all paramedics.
Yes, there's the paramedics, there's the 2% increase, and then of course the UAL.
How much of that overtime is non-FLSA overtime?
I do have a breakdown here of overtime.
Because I know there's like a fusion discussion, right? Killing fire department overtime is right around the corner and always will be. Like,
If you give me maybe 30 seconds, I can kind of go through this really quick here. FLSA. So there's 2 FLSA. So 2, 3, 7,
I mean, we have
6.
budgeted overtime that we have to provide because of the way the schedules are structured, but how much is this unplanned overtime?
So for FLSA overtime, $415,000 is for next year. And then another FLSA for paramedic division, $290,000. So if you combine that, that's 267. So that's a little over $700,000 in FLSA overtime. Now let's exclude that out of the $2.6 million total overtime. So you're looking at $1.9 million when you exclude FLSA.
I mean,
Again, we're fully staffed.
what are we doing?
Right? Fully staffed at the fire department now?
Chief, maybe you can help me with that one, but I believe there's 2 vacancies, but I don't want to misspeak on that.
Good afternoon, Fire Chief Ryan Alley.
Do you want to take a second to get your helmet?
No, what's that, sir?
You want to take a second to get your helmet? Because we're
Yeah,
going to start throwing
yeah.
things.
We got falling debris in here. So, I know you've heard a lot of this. This is a pain point, I know, for overtime, but this isn't extra staffing daily or anything like that. This is to staff our apparatus for fire and rescue in town and for auto and mutual aid. But when we're talking about fully staffed, right now we're 1 vacancy, but this might make it easiest actually. But if you take a snapshot today, I have 3 off on injury. 1 got injured last week on a call. I have 2 off long-term injuries that have had surgeries, and I'll get to a little, I have some notes here. We're assisting in that to make things faster. And then I have 1 that just had a baby that, this is a new thing, we're using FMLA, which is great. He's off for 2 to 3 months. Using his time, he's utilizing his PTO, vacation or sick. So really, I know I have 1 vacancy. I'm operating my daily staffing with those 5 vacancies. So having the staffing, and we've been really doing well with that. Our HR, do we have anybody from HR in here? I want to thank them. They've been assisting. We are working quicker to get people onboarded. Recruitment is constant. It gives us a way better foundation, but just it's kind of a moving target because when these people are out and they have to have a fully able body to do their job, it takes a little bit longer to get back sometimes. I have to fill their position on the apparatus to basically adequately respond to emergencies in the city. So I just wanted to tell you that for that snapshot today, but if I'd like to also share in 25, 26, we had 6 members that had babies and they were off FMLA. So while they're off, we're backfilling for their spots. 3 members retired or resigned. 7 members had to go off injury. This is throughout the year so far. So those are kind of what we call unplanned, like the
Chief,
mayor was
are we
talking
always
about.
rolling with 13 people on a shift, or are you ever running short on a shift?
We do not. We run with 13 and a division chief daily for our suppression and fire rescue.
So we've had this conversation with every chief that's been up here, that everybody would like to run with 100% complement on everything all the time, but that's not reality, right? I'd love 43 Marines in a platoon and 117 in a company. That's just not the way it works. Like this, $1.9 million in overtime is remarkable. And if somebody knows they can stay on IOD and their shift will always be filled, that creates a cultural moral hazard. I think this is an incredibly disappointing number.
I think it's where we've kind of held the line for a while.
You have held the line.
Yeah, and we
And
will
we have had this
hold the line next
discussion
year.
for 8 years about what it takes to suppress this with 2 different trucks running, per 2 different sections running, and insisting that we fully staff to every man all the time. And we got up here and, Dean would burst into tears up there over this. Like, this is $1.9 million in unplanned overtime is a crazy number to tax these people with.
Well, it's not completely unplanned. Some of it is, we do know they're going to take vacation and sick time from their accrued banks. But and on the other side of this is I can staff it because I have people that are willing to work the overtime, or sometimes they're force hired because, I'll be honest with you, our call volume's up, infrastructure, the value of these buildings, what's inside of them, the events that we have happening in the city, it all adds up to where we're at right now that we need to have these rigs.
And we went to 100% paramedics so that we could adequately address this issue with more efficient use of people. Because before it was we need overtime because we always have to have a certain number of paramedics on.
Yes.
Right? And now everybody's a paramedic, and in theory, that was supposed to help us curtail overtime.
I know where you're
because it
going.
wouldn't be
Yeah, I
able to
know
justify
exactly
it.
where you're going with that.
Well, I'm going with it right here. Yes, I
Right.
just told you I was going with it.
Sorry, sorry. Where that was really assisted us was we used to send people off to paramedic school and say, see ya, we'll see you in 7 months, and then backfill for them. We do it now while they're on duty. We get a lot of the didactic done, and then we do internal internship where they run the calls here, so we save overtime there, which we saved. We've just had 2 go through this last fiscal year, quite a bit of money there, so this would have been even higher had we not have done that, but that's what you're referring to for that. But I do have a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel on this. We do get reimbursements from Chevron for what we're doing with them right now, a program for notifications, Charger standby, and strike team when we go out Cal OES. We do anticipate a big fire season this season, but we do get all that back. It also, like Chief Rodriguez said, it goes back into the general fund. When we do have a vacancy that we are backfilling for overtime, we're not throwing money down a wind tunnel. That money's saved on a fully burdened employee that we're not paying. So although we are putting money into the overtime account, we're not paying off into a vacancy for basically an employee, fully burdened rate. Our people are using their PTO banks. Those have value. The city is capturing that value. 24 hours from a captain, taking 24 hours from his PTO bank, he could cash that out. He's losing it. So for that, you're paying off somebody in overtime. Yes, there's generally more. It's 1.5. However, you're getting his hours that he could cash out at the end of the year. So not a wash, but you're having some savings there as well. And we're doing some mitigation efforts. We're constantly recruiting for fire paramedic. That's now our entry level. We have that open 24. So actually, I have interviews this week because we're anticipating next year for retirees, classic members. That's another part of the token I want to talk about. We're getting now over 50% of our members are PEPRA, so these rates are going down as well. But we have a constant recruitment. We have active promotional lists for all of our ranks. The reason that's important, if I have a captain retire, that doesn't do me any good to hire a fire paramedic. I have to push somebody up from that rank to put somebody in from lower. So we keep our promotional list active right now so we could make it quicker to get them on the books. We have streamlined recruitment with our, like I just talked about with HR, and now we used to wait for an academy. We'd wait 3 to 4 months to do an academy with all these people, pay people overtime to come in and teach it. We do on-the-job training, onboarding on the rig, so we could save money there as well. And we're working towards a workers' comp carve-out. People could get on the MRIs quicker, get their operation quicker, get back quicker. So we're working on a carve-out with that too. So we do have a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel with this, Mr. Mayor.
Are we joining the fire truck lawsuit from San Diego, suing the fire truck manufacturers that we discussed? Is that worth it for us? Because they take 2004 technology, paint it red, and charge us $2 million.
I know that the city attorney's office is looking into that and possibility of joining that lawsuit, yes.
Okay.
A similar question that was asked about the police department. Do we have an all-in number for the reimbursable expenses that are going into the general fund? And can we start to include that here going forward?
I have a number. My budget now, number. But that can change daily, or annually when we go out for brush fires. It changes, but this year we're roughly at $500,000. Just to give you an idea, $500,000.
Thank you.
So I just want to make sure I heard correctly. 1.9 million is overtime that is not being reimbursed through FMLA or through PTO.
No, some of that is.
I thought we came down to a number of 1.9 when we deducted all those reimbursables. Is that the number we came up with? That 1.9 was expenses and overtime?
I think we're talking,
the
FLSA is the halftime.
So how much of the overtime is what we are incurring that is not being reimbursed?
Do you have that? How much of that? It's my senior management analyst.
Good afternoon, City Council. Well, again, the reimbursable amounts fluctuate from year to year, depending on how many strike teams our department is called on to assist with. For example, last year, we had Palisades and the Eaton Fire. This year, we had the September Lightning Complex, and then there was an Orleans Fire. The Orleans Fire was a lot smaller, but the September Lightning Complex was about $68,000. In addition to that, we also have chargers, and that was to the tune of $65,000. And then the other revenue source was, let's see, there's chargers, yes, Chevron. Chevron is another one, with the AB60.
But if we isolate the fires, because that's a variable we can't control and it's very difficult.
Correct.
Budget, purpose of a budget is try to predict where we're gonna land for the year with some level of certainty. So if we isolate the fires, how much overtime is not being reimbursed?
Well, again, there's another source of revenue that isn't talked about often, and that's the transport revenue. And annually, we bring in about $1 million in transport revenue. So again, and these all sit in different buckets.
But that's not dependent on overtime, is it? I mean, is there a direct relationship between overtime and?
I would
Okay, so
say
I'm just trying to understand, forget about that potential offsetting revenue for the department. How much of the overtime is not being reimbursed? Because I think I landed at a $1.9 million number, and if so, that's staggering. That's like 10 full-time equivalent personnel in FFA.
Well, again, I think the reimbursable amount truly that we receive would come from strike team fires. And as you said, those are not predictable per se, so it's
Yeah.
difficult to land on a number every year. This year, we had the one strike team, and that was $65,000.
Mr. Boyle, the reimbursable you're getting for that would be what I talked about earlier, is capturing some of their PTO banks, their sick and vacation, which has a value, because as they utilize it, it goes off our books. It's almost like the funds are being paid now instead of later at the end of their careers, which could be I'm not gonna say 1.5 is gonna be higher, the FLSA, but some of these hourly, they get up there a little bit.
Yeah, I get it. I think to the mayor's point, it's like, could you not just staff less, not compromise safety for our businesses and residents, and instead of replacing people with overtime, you're not replacing people, you're just drawing down those liabilities regardless.
Or alternatively, could you do what police does and hire above what you need to staff fully
those are great
13
questions.
people per team?
We operate at 3-person engines, which is the lowest that is possible to effectively, like I said, do fire and rescue. But on that note, we could do the lowest level, but it doesn't really help out the other ranks. I can't put a new fire paramedic into a captain position. I still have to backfill for that spot. And that's 2/3 of our department is above fire paramedic, so it'd be difficult to do that. And then now you have fully, 4 or 5 more fully burdened employees on the books with their pension liability and all that good stuff.
I think part of the problem right now is we've learned that overhiring does not solve the overtime problem.
I agree.
So then where does that leave us as for solution-based? Because it's always been, okay, we're not fully staffed, that's why we have overtime, or one of the many parts of the equation as to why we don't have it. And then we overhire or give a delta to be able to do that, or get fully staffed, and we're still staring down the barrel of the same problem. So I know this is a conversation we have every year, a couple times a year, and I know it's not comfortable for you, and it's not fun for us, but the problem is that we only know what we see up here. So we have no choice but to react to this.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I would like you to see is this isn't money you're throwing down a wind tunnel and it's going bye-bye.
It's not even that, Chief. It's the fact that we have a budget, we have a structural deficit looming, and we have to look at these big items and say, okay, we have to justify why it's going on, or else we're not doing our job. I understand you're doing your job, and I'm not saying that you're not. But I think it's also important for you to realize what our job is to look at these things and say, okay, why are they happening? All right, we can fix it by doing X. So we do X. It doesn't fix the problem. So now we're going, okay, what do we do now? So we have to come up with solutions to this.
Yeah.
It's
So that's why it's like-
$700,000 worse than the last time we tried to fix it.
Right. So our solution didn't work.
Did.
Right.
Well, we're gonna stay on budget this year, and we'll stay on budget next year with it. I could tell you that with being there.
The problem is the
1.9 million
budget's too high.
yeah.
That's the problem. The budget's too high. And I think, Darrell, we asked you also to dig into this last couple of years, is to really get a handle on the OT, the policy, the expense, because I agree, it continues to grow, but it's not becoming any less safe in town from a fire standpoint.
We're telling the residents of El Segundo that 1.5% of their general fund budget is just to unplanned fire overtime. That's a crazy thing to tell them.
Yeah, from a budgetary perspective, if full staff or overstaff doesn't help overtime, then we're decreasing the amount of people in departments just to manage the funds, which is not a situation that anyone wants to be in. So we're asking the professionals in the room, help us figure out a solution for these overtime increases we've seen year after year, because obviously we don't understand it. We don't think it's good for the city's financial well-being. And I, for one, would like to understand how it's happening and what we can do to address it.
So just to go back to, again, getting staffing, huge foundation platform for us. Take a snapshot today. One firefighter got injured on a call a couple weeks ago. He's off IOD. 2 long-term IODs. They're off on surgeries. They're going to be back in 4 to 6 months. And then I have somebody that just had a baby. He's off for 2 to 3 months with his family, using his PTO. So that's five with only having one vacancy. So you can see how it's a moving target. Now, maybe in 3 or 4 months, I'm hiring somebody right now, bringing them on board actually, in a couple weeks. Maybe I have no vacancies and nobody off. But then we send a rig out for another fire up in Malibu. Now I have people off for 2-3 weeks that we're backfilling for them. So it's just kind of a moving target. I don't know if there's a perfect silver bullet for it.
No, I understand. And the more I learn about what you and what the police do, the more I understand how complex the job is. But we also have a job up here, and that involves asking some hard questions. So we're willing to work towards something that's going to resolve this. But it has been, in the short time I've been up here, a reoccurring theme that we keep hitting our heads against the wall about what are we going to do about this. So I'm open for any suggestions you have to help address this.
We'll work towards that. Thank you. Any other questions?
Anything further?
Thank
Well,
you.
I think, yeah, the question is, do we want to approve the proposed overtime is the question.
I think this is just the study session, and I welcome the opportunity for the city manager to study this line item heavily.
Yeah, they'll have to come back with the budget that we'll then have to give an up, down for. This is our discussion session of.
Thank you.
Councilmember Boyles, you mentioned about kind of just overtime reimbursements. To give you some additional context, that seems like back in 24-25, we had $267,000 of reimbursable overtime. But next year, we're just budgeting $36,000. So
You said 224,000?
$267,000.
And how much of that is fire related? I mean, not fire related, sorry, when we go support other.
That's, well, how much of that? I would say $167,000 was
Okay.
fire support, yeah.
So like
Strike team.
90,000
Yes.
was stuff that was not.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on fire before I move on to Public Works? No? Okay. Oh, and just wanted to reiterate that when we come back with the budget adoption, the council wants the city manager and I to just look more deeper into overtime and just come back with what's proposed, but yet with possible changes. I just want to make sure I fully understand.
We have
the
two
direction.
employees, the city manager and the city attorney. So we're directing our employee to come back with something that does not make us want to vomit in our chairs.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Public Works. So we have two more departments. The Public Works budget is going up $267,000 or 3% next year. There's two positions that they are underfilling, from a senior civil engineer down to a senior engineering associate and an associate engineer. That's a cost savings of $42,000. Also, this is really just a cleanup item on the budgetary side, but they want to delete a office specialist and add a admin specialist for a $7,000 increase in budget. On their M&O, their janitorial contract is going up to $91,000. By $91,000, so the total budget will be $400,000 next year. The new contract for duct HVAC cleaning is $40,000. Also, increases in utility and operating supplies of $25,000 for the plunge operations is budgeted for next year as well. On the street services division, there's an increase in contractual service for the annual street sweeping contract of $21,000. So the total contract for total budget for next year is $527,000.
Can we please keep an eye on that Yuba City decision around street sweeping, getting prevailing wage? I am not sure that that is the supreme law of the land yet. I think there's some cities that are relitigating that makes us pay $96 an hour for a street sweeper. If the tides turn in the direction of sanity and we can renegotiate that contract or we get that $200,000 back.
Yes, sir.
I thought we were going to approve that. The vendor said if that changes, she'll go back to the
It
regular
did.
rate.
There are 4 cities apparently that are digging their heels in and not doing it and taking on the prevailing wage law with it. So if there's a chance that sanity prevails, because it's really a misclassification, that $96 an hour allocates for a synthetic street sweeping on a rubberized surface.
I agree.
As opposed
Yes,
to just
sir.
asphalt, so.
Yes, sir, absolutely. And I keep up with that, by the way. Sure.
Thank you, Les. And lastly, on the traffic safety, they're increasing their contractual service line item, which pertains to streetlights maintenance and additional signal light of 50,000. So the total budget for that is 210,000 next year.
Can I just can we have a little bit of explanation on the janitorial and what's included in the contractual service for the streetlights? Are we adding streetlight? I think we're adding, or what's going on there?
Sure. So the previous vendor that we had, practically he pooped out on us. He just simply said he couldn't keep up, the work with the dollars in the contract. So we seeked a temporary help, and in fact, on the next city council meeting on the 19th, there is an item for janitorial services, and it talks about what happened. So we went out and did an RFP, and based on the RFP, the new cost is not as much as 91,000. When Paul put this together, we didn't have those numbers, so it's about $60,000 more, not 91. It's closer to 60. So those numbers are on the staff report that you'll see for the next city council meeting on the 19th. But the scope of the work is to keep up and clean up about 17 city sites, anywhere from City Hall all the way to the Aquatic Center, to the plunge, police, fire. The services are to keep up with all the cleanup they have to do, the vacuuming and collecting trash and keeping the restrooms clean and it's all in the staff report that is forthcoming.
And then the streetlights, what is that?
No, the streetlights.
With traffic safety, it says, streetlights maintenance and additional traffic.
Yeah, so the increase, this is for the annual street sweeping. Okay, I'm sorry, which?
Sorry, the bottom bullet.
At the bottom. Okay, so we do have a maintenance agreement with county to keep up with our traffic lights. So we added a couple of traffic lights as a result of the development on southeast part of town. So that increased that cost for maintenance of our traffic signal.
Okay, and then I just want to say thank you. You always do such a good job with your department from a production standpoint.
Oh, thank you.
With the limited head count, you don't add head count, and I think you're just a great example of fiscal stewardship. So I just want to acknowledge that publicly. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Les. Okay. We have one last department, RPL. So RPL's budget is going up by $1 million next year, or 9%. Focusing on the personnel side, they are requesting one full-time body position, facilities maintenance supervisor. That's a cost at $182,000. Also, my phone is going off, sorry. The department is asking for some additional part-time positions, the rec leader, senior rec leader, and a rec specialist. That cost is $382,000 for additional programming for next year. And also for the additional lifeguard, senior lifeguard and swim instructors, all part-timers, at $256,000. Of course, that's for the plunge going operational next fiscal year as well. So of course, it's a total FTE increase is 11.82 for next year. On their M&O side, there's just various items, Council, and this is just kind of touching some of the higher level items. On the plunge, they're asking for some they're going to do some additional programming for swim classes for $25,000. Clubhouse, they do want to get some new stage risers for $20,000 instead of renting them. The sports pickleball scheduling software, as pickleball continues to be very popular, they're proposing an $18,000 software for scheduling. The teen center, they're proposing some new programming from Ski Week to kind of reprogramming some of their programs, as Teen Center will be closed for remodeling, and that costs us $6,000. For Jocelyn Center, they're asking for some new furniture, as from what I heard from Ally, that the furniture desperately needs to be replaced. That's $8,000. They also are proposing some new special events, Juneteenth for $1,000, and Veterans Day and Movies at the Park. Both are about $5,000. Not each, but in totality. And camps, they're also having some new programs for enhancing Club Calbunga and Camp Lit. That's a cost of $15,000. And we preface it by there's, of course, fees that we charge to offset some of these expenses.
So,
Oh,
question
sorry,
on the
I
camps.
should have went to the next slide.
On the camps, I assume if you want 15,000 staffing, is that what this is?
This here is for M&O, I believe.
Yes.
Correct?
M&O.
So keep in mind, we offer about 50 weeks of camp total. So this is increased costs in supplies, trips, et cetera.
What is our cost recovery in these camps?
100% for most of them.
Okay, so this is a net zero then?
Correct.
Okay.
Small item, but the furniture, we have furniture as part of potential CIP for Jocelyn. This is in advance of that, this desk?
Yes, so we asked for this prior to knowing, or that we think that we're going to get this grant. However, it's just there's furniture over there is in pretty bad shape.
Tell me it's not one desk for $8,000.
Oh, no.
It's a chair
It's
and
a bunch,
desk.
it's a lot of chairs, for the social hall where we do all of our events for the seniors and bingo and all that stuff.
You could paint it red at 70,000.
Sure.
What, pray tell, is the pickleball scheduling software?
Yeah, so this is for all of our leagues and tournaments. This is something that users, get on their phones and they can figure out when they're playing and who their teams are, et cetera. We did talk about potentially passing this cost on. I think it was going to be like $1, Linnea, per interaction. But because that program in particular is generating a lot of revenue year after year after year, we feel like we need to give them something for, kind of what they're paying for, but we could pass the cost along.
Okay.
It'll help tremendously with efficiency in terms of right now there's a human body filling out a spreadsheet, et cetera.
Who is 16 years old.
Everyone
with pickleball
loves
parents.
Rec and Park software. It always goes right. Yeah, feel free to pass that along. Add $1 to the sign up.
Okay.
All right. There's also additional M&O asks in their park and operations. The increase in landscaping, tree trimming, and miscellaneous land care contracts, that's an increase of $44,000. That'll bring their total landscape budget to $926,000 for next year. But slight decrease in their repairs and maintenance of $35,000 next year. On the M&O for library, there's not much big ask. They're asked an increase for some books and printed material, ebooks and Blu-ray DVDs. And also a replacement for book security resensitizer machine for $4,000.
Is landscaping and things for the expanded Hilltop Park, is that covered in CIP under the demolition, or will that be covered in the Rec and Park? Or the Public Works?
CIP.
Whose line item? Where
It'd
lieth
be
it?
covered under CIP, sir.
The reseeding and all that is part of that project? Not just the
Yes, sir,
demo?
that's
Okay.
to follow up after demolition work is done, which is,
Got
I'm
it. We're a
gonna be
few slides
talking
away,
about
got
that.
it.
Yeah.
It's just the turfing, no amenities or anything.
Okay, that concludes kind of the department budgets. I know we've been 2 hours in. If the council wants to take a break.
Yeah, I think we'll take a quick
take a
5-minute
break
bio
here.
break.
Great.
If that works?
Okay,
All right.
and then we'll jump into CIP after and finish it up. Yes, to continue our budget study session, this is the last section of the study session, capital improvement project. I will turn it over to Director Sassoon to kind of go through the various slides. We'll cover kind of current projects, where they are, and then also propose next year's projects as well.
Thank you, Paul. Good afternoon, members of the City Council and Mr. Mayor. The next few slides, I will be talking about the proposed fiscal year 26-27 CIP projects, which relate to goal number 4, which is to develop quality infrastructure and technology. Here are the list of the CIP projects which are either completed or soon to be completed. The first one is Main Street banner pole project, $20,000. The next, the library elevator repairs, $270,000. That was also completed. The aquatic center heater replacement project, $700,000. That project was also completed. The 25-26 pavement, that's rehab of the pavement projects for city roadways, $1 million, that was also completed. The 25-26 concrete project, that is to replace broken sidewalks and take care of non-existing sidewalks, that was also completed. The next project, CDBG ADA improvements, the work is completed, but we yet not have accepted the project. It's gonna be completed within maybe next month or two. The next project, fire station number 2 HVAC, $150,000 was completed, and as I understand, all the firemen are very happy for that. EV charging stations at the executive parking lot for $100,000 was just completed a couple of weeks ago. Also, Plunge, $18.7 million approximately. That is also about to complete.
When do we start to see the reimbursements from Wiseburn on the heaters?
We already sent a bill for them for their share, which was half of that, and I believe they sent the money to us, didn't they, Paul? Yeah, we did receive our half. Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Sure. So continuing with the next slide, we just talked about the Plunge. The Plunge is a project that is about to be completed. I just found out that the fire department, they approved everything. Right now, the county folks are out there, and I expect everything to pass, and we have all the permits from the county as well today. I mean, I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed. Continuing with the CIP projects that are in progress, the Teen Center, this project, which a lot of us been waiting for, is on the next City Council agenda for May 19th for award. And frankly, I'm very excited to get this project kicked on. If all goes well, we anticipate to start construction in September, and we'll be able to hopefully done by July. The next project, which is on the right side of this slide, is the Rec and Park cosmetic projects that's taking care of the surface cracks, the walls, and the rusted fence posts. That project is ongoing right now. It's been going on since February of this year, and by end of June, early July, we should be able to complete that project as well. The next project on the left side is the EOC. This is a project where we received a grant. It's about $400,000. The design was completed. We have sent the plans to the building and safety to get permits. And this is gonna be on the City Council agenda for second meeting in June for approving of the plans and asking City Council to give us authorization to advertise the project for construction. The right side of this slide is the Hilltop Reservoir demolition. This project is frankly substantially complete. We plan to have it fully completed by summer, and then the next project, which is the irrigation and the turf, is going to be forthcoming next. The Public Works Department, we do serve other departments. They're our clients, along with the knowledge of the the projects that we know we need to accommodate. So we reached out and we asked all the departments to let us know their pressing projects, including fire, police, rec and park, and every department. So they provided us the list of these projects, and typically the processes we get with CPAC, which is Capital Improvement Program. The AC stands for the advisory committee, and they have a criteria where they score these projects, and the criteria is based on a number of things. Number one is based on health and safety. The second criteria is system condition. The third is the return of the investment. The next is if there is any legal requirement to do the project, and then the next one is coordination with other agencies, and the last one is what is the community interest in the project. So based on that criteria, they score these projects. So you see the score on a very, very right column. The highest score is 38. So you see the scores are from 12 to 26. And the top few that have high score is because we are getting grants for the top few projects. So I'd like to go over these projects, if you don't mind, and very briefly talk about the scope and the cost and whether or not it's a grant or not. And then, of course, I'll be glad to answer any question after I'm done. So the first one is the Joslyn Center improvement. We started this project hoping for a $5 million grant. And the grant, the $5 million, it didn't come to us, and at best, we're gonna get $803,000. By end of this year, we'll know whether we're gonna get it or not. There's a good chance we're gonna get the grant for $803,000. And then we're gonna also put $800,000 from general fund of our funds, so the project is gonna be $1.6 million, and the idea is try to accommodate whatever the shortcomings are for the Joslyn Center. It could be ADA, it could be painting, it could be reconfiguring the kitchen, furniture, painting, flooring, and so we are now going through that. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna have a menu for each component. The cost would be whatever, and then we'll pick and choose based on the priority, and of course, we bring it up to the city council to make sure they agree with going forward with getting the project done. The next project is the roadway safety and mobility improvements. The cost of this project is about $500,000, and the scope is to improve a couple of intersections in town. One is Douglas at Utah. The other intersection is Douglas at Alaska. And basically, the scope of improvements is to do the improved signage, ADA compliance, to also add flashing beacon lights for pedestrians. So when they push that button, they get flashing light, and they can cross the street safely. And also maybe flashing stop signs and new striping. Also included in this project is to deal with S-curve along Vista Del Mar within the limits of the city of El Segundo, where a lot of people, when they are drunk and not feeling good, when they are feeling good and drive, they tend to go too fast, and we've had a couple of accidents along that S-curve. So we want to make some improvements, which would be upgrading the markers and do some striping and do some curve signage and install rumble strips. So the rumble strips are such that if driver gets on them, they know that they are about to leave the roadway. So all of these improvements is about $500,000. The next project is the Safe Routes to School. This is a $500,000 project as well, and the city is only putting $100,000 into this project. The $400,000 is coming from a Metro grant funding. The next project is EOC improvement. This is about $400,000 project. It's the grant that we are getting, and I explained that we are about ready to final the drawings and get the improvements done. And we have a deadline of April of next year to complete this project, by the way. The next project is the EV charging stations and the EV infrastructure. The project is $350,000. This is also grant, no matching funds. The whole thing, the whole $350,000 is grant that we received, and the intention is to initiate and install some plugs for electric vehicles throughout the city, basically.
Are those for the public to use, or just for?
Yes, for public use, sir. Yes, sir.
Do we charge for those?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, about 54 cents per kilowatt, I believe, but the rating, it's up to city council, that could be adjusted.
Do we have the ability to have the ones installed where people sell ads on them?
Well, yeah.
Because people will just put those in, right, if they can put their ads on them?
Well, there is really, it's not much room to install any ads, but if we can talk about that. My preference is really not to do that, but
we used to have them come in here all the time asking us if they could put up charging stations, if they could run ads for whatever.
Well, if they approach us, that we can do that, of course. Yeah. The next project is police department shooting range HVAC improvements. That's about cost of $200,000. And the reason for that is right now, the police department, when they go to this shooting range, they have more powerful guns, and because the previous project, it lowered the ceiling, it just the volume is not there, and we just need to maybe enhance and revisit the exhaust vents so that there won't be much smoke generated, because right now they are not using that facility.
Is that a mechanical flaw with the ventilation system or a design flaw?
I look into that. I think what happened in the last time this project was renovated or was redone was to soundproof it, and they really did not concentrate on the size of the exhaust vent. So it was really making it soundproof, and frankly, to my knowledge, they really didn't look at the ventilation as needed, frankly.
Can we just ensure that we look into that, because we spent $750,000 renovating that shooting range? And
Be glad to.
If we did that without paying attention to where the sweet smell of cordite goes, that is concerning.
Be glad to. The next project is the Smoky Hollow parking. It's $900,000. When we brought this item before City Council on February of 2025, we had alternatives, and the cheapest alternative was $900,000. I double checked, and that's what it was. The next project is the city maintenance yard roofing improvements. The price tag is $900,000, but we plan to defer that to next year. Right now, I think with the repairs that were made, the roof will be fine. The next project is Public Works Engineering Division remodeling. As the entrance to Public Works, you've noticed, it was based on being able to greet walk-in customers and the individuals that wanted to make modifications to their homes and meeting with our staff and community development staff to go over the plans. But since most of these applications are submitted online, that space is not really being utilized, and it's empty a lot of times. So we want to redo and reallocate that space to more office for our staff, and that's what this project is. The next project is Police Department Security Camera System Upgrade. That's about $200,000 price tag for this project, and this is really to upgrade their current cameras that are about 11 years old, and the resolution is not very well. It also includes a video management system where they can store a lot of footage and be able to retrieve, the conditions to, whatever accidents happen to support the incidents and whatnot.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
We don't currently have the digital infrastructure to support video?
I don't believe we do have the type that they want. This one is the state of art, but I don't know if I don't know what the existing system that they have is.
Todd's got it.
Todd's right here.
Hi. Oh, yeah. The storage infrastructure where the video gets stored. I'm sorry. The storage infrastructure where the video gets stored is end of life. Won't be fully funded to replace until next year. Most video camera systems now for security are utilizing cloud storage, so there's a license cost associated with that. But yeah, that's the main cost.
And these are the Verkada cameras?
Yes.
And these will just be at that building, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, it'll be inside the building as well as outside the building. It'll be on the parking
but
lots.
just
yes, sir.
on the police,
Yes,
if
sir.
we put Verkada cameras at Rec Park, people are going to lose their mind.
Yes,
That's what
sir.
they should.
Yes, sir. The last is Police Department Emergency Generator. So the emergency generator replacement, the price tag is $350,000. The existing generator works with diesel. It looks crappy, it's rusty, and I think the city of El Segundo deserves a new generator, but nevertheless, the existing one is working and is being maintained. So before I go to the next slide, does any of you have any question about any of these projects, if I may ask?
Yes. The roadway safety issues.
Yes, sir.
So it ranked all the way up on number 2.
Yes, sir.
Second most important. So, we talked about this a little bit. The S-curve situation.
Yes, sir.
It's down on Vista Del Mar in the one little area that we actually own.
Correct.
So my problem or my challenge on this is that S-curve has existed since Jesus was a baby. And all of a sudden, we have decided that we are going to stop drunk drivers and people who don't drive well and are irresponsible by spending, how much?
The improvements for the 2 intersections and
Give me ballpark.
The ballpark is about $120,000.
So we're going to spend $120,000
Yeah.
for this. And I question whether or not that money should be used towards something else that has a more direct impact on the people who live here.
Right.
So I have a problem with that one.
Yes, sir.
If we were in a cycle where we weren't facing budgetary issues and we had all kinds of money for capital improvement projects, I classify these things as need and want. That's a want, in my opinion. It's not a need. There are other things in here that are needs. So I could be alone on it, that's fine, but I do want to say that I do not think that is the best use of our money.
My response, if I may, this is a philosophical discussion, but we had a couple of fatality accidents, one last year, one the year before.
There's fatalities everywhere.
Yes,
There
sir.
are traffic incidents everywhere. There are drunk drivers everywhere in every city, in every state, in this country.
Understand?
My point is, we are responsible for how big is the section we're responsible on Vista Del Mar?
It's very small section. Yes, sir.
So anything that happens on either side of that isn't a problem, it's just there. There's no other improvements going on anywhere else on Vista Del Mar, just there. So I understand philosophically why it's there. I don't understand why we have decided that that is the second most important thing to do in this city this year. That's my challenge. So I think that is probably way too high of a priority, in my opinion.
Yes, sir.
Do the crosswalks, does that include any money for the crosswalk at Coral Circle, the one that Aerospace put in that they're using?
No, sir. That is still, that's another willing motion that I'm coordinating
Yeah, I
with
sent a
them.
note over to make
Right.
sure we get the MOU back from them, but.
That is
that's
not
a-
much. That's about $10,000 that
Okay,
is not gonna cost.
Say, those guys playing Frogger crossing the street with their test equipment is at least as dangerous as that S-curve. I mean, that thing is people come through there 50 miles an hour, and you know, PhDs jumping out of the way. I'll ask another question. We spoke briefly about the engineering remodel.
Yes, sir.
Does that have to be permanent in place stuff, or can we just move furniture around? Only because we just remodeled that space
Well,
a couple of years ago,
besides
which was not
just
cheap.
Yes, sir. Besides just furniture removal, I think it takes a little bit of also be able to allocate the spaces, and some coordination needs to be made between the two departments. So it's just not just simply moving the furniture. We need to have a good planning before we do, and make sure wherever the new furniture goes, that we have plugs on the wall. You know, I mean, other things will kick in. So there's a little bit of work involved, not a whole lot, and we try to keep it very minimum. This 150,000 is just a budget. We're not gonna spend all of that, but it takes a little bit of more effort other than just moving the furniture, in my humble opinion, and moving partitions.
For $150,000?
No, the 150,000 is just the budget.
Because Ryan and I
we
will
could
do
do,
half that.
yeah, we could.
I'll do 70 grand, I'll make a
Yeah.
deal.
All right, I will be able to do that.
I can move furniture
Sure.
like nobody's business.
70,000, everybody's comfortable
Good
with
deal.
70,000? Okay, we cut this down on 70,000.
The Smoky Hollow parking stripes, that was approved in 2020.
Correct.
First time as a concept.
Correct.
And then we took it to the COG, we approved it.
Yes.
Metro shot it down. We did not reapply. If we re-added it to the budget, and then we could reapply and try and get it reimbursed? Because the idea was we were going to be adding a grand total of 154 spots.
Correct.
On the diagonals. The parking garage had 400, and then we put 9 spots in on El Segundo Boulevard. The 9 spots on El Segundo Boulevard were super unpopular, fine. We got the 72 spots in on the east side of Center Street, but on the west side, we are still constrained. I would advocate putting those stripes in is bare bones, and if we have to resurface it in a year and then do the engineering, that's fine, but I would go diagonal in one way as quickly as we can.
Sure.
I totally concur. Expressed the same thing with you yesterday, I think.
Yes. So the reason the Metro did not give us the grant, it went through the COG board, but the Metro was the one that did not give us the grant because they didn't feel that this meets the criteria for mobility. And we could try again, but chances are, I'm not sure if, frankly, we'll, and we talked to them, we fought them, we tried to convince them otherwise. They were not, they didn't want any part of our justification, and, but we can try again. So the idea is to utilize the SB funding, which is on the upcoming City Council agenda on 5/19. There is a SB 1 funding that it is on the agenda on the items that the city council will hopefully approve. It's under consent. And we plan to use that money, SB1, to rehab and improve the pavements, quality of pavements within the Smoky Hollow, and then come back and do the striping and install the bollards. And we'll try again for Metro to see if we can recoup our money. But that's what the plan is.
But that would be in this fiscal year?
No, next fiscal year,
No,
26
no, I mean, I'm telling you, like, this cannot take 6 years to put in 55
Yes.
diagonal lines. I mean, it just can't.
Of course. So if the city council, the reason that we put this project on the 27, I believe, was, I'm sorry, 27, 28. The Smoky Hollow I'm referring to. The reason we did that is to keep the commitments from the general funds toward the CIP under 3 million. So we had to, we had to have meetings with finance director to come up with that. Can we change that? Absolutely. Whatever your pleasure is, we'll be glad to do it.
Couldn't we just reallocate the money from the S-curve to paint lines?
The S-curve is about 120, but this is 900.
It would at least cut into it.
Whatever is the pleasure of the city council, we'll do it.
I hear you on the S-curve. I get it, because we have a limited pool of money, right? And we're trying to allocate. I will say, anecdotally, I have an 18-year-old driver and a 15-year-old new driver, and we were just driving that stretch after one of our esteemed fire department personnel had told me after 10 p.m., stay off of Vista Del Mar and Imperial, and you exponentially increase your chances of not getting in a life-threatening accident. And having that 15-year-old drive on that S-curve and like screaming at him to slow down, I don't know. I get it. Number 2 seems aggressive, but relative to all the other dollar items on here, I see the value in it from a safety perspective.
If we think we're going to solve traffic problems by spending that money on that, we are being delusional. I'm just saying. It doesn't make sense in the scheme of things.
I think if we are on notice of a dangerous condition, and now we're on record discussing it, we have an obligation to ameliorate that because it's within our city. So I am fine with the rankings that have been given to us by the CIP. That's why we have these people put the work in. 150 is not going to move the needle on any one of these projects. And my concern mostly is about health and safety. And if this is a known issue, I don't want the liability on the city. So if we can do something to make it safer, then I'm on board with following the recommendations of the CIP.
Okay, but who determined that? Is my question. So if someone has issued us a report saying this is a huge liability to you, I would have a different opinion on it, but that doesn't seem to be what's happened, or am I missing something? How did this become an inflection point, I guess is maybe what I'm missing. I need some context.
Yeah, so I was contacted by our police chief. He mentioned about the problem that there were 2 fatalities, and he asked me to look into that. And we collectively in Public Works, and thanks Cheryl, we had our traffic engineer look at it. And in my humble opinion,
let's just go facts.
Yeah,
Facts over feelings
The
right
fact
now,
is,
okay?
since this project was initiated as a result of me being contacted by police chief, and that's why I really initiated this project, which really is public now. We do have
Okay,
to.
so hold on. I'm sorry, but we're running around in a circle.
Yeah.
I understand why he said that. Great. And then you're going to take it and go with your team and determine whether or not you think it's something that needs to be addressed.
Correct.
So is that what you did?
Yes.
And
we did agree. In my humble opinion, I'm going to put my own name. Yes,
just tell
I
me,
do agree.
In your study, you decided, hey, he's right. We need to address this.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I needed to hear. That's the part that nobody told me about. I just thought it was up there because somebody decided one day that you need to fix the S-curve. If you guys as a group have decided that this is the way to go, okay.
I apologize for not being clear earlier, but
Elias, I just want to comment, I want to add on to what Mayor was saying. And I think I mentioned this in our meeting, the one item of all these CIP that will improve the perception of the 98% of the people that pay our taxes, the business community, is additional parking capacity. It's low-hanging fruit for us. It increases inherently the property values. It makes it easier for them to move in and out of Smoky Hollow. We've been talking about it, to Chris's point, for 6 years. I think we approved it 6 years ago.
Sure.
I think we should do everything we can to accelerate that.
Of course.
That is just, it's one thing that will enhance the experience of people. We're already struggling to keep our businesses in town with so many other factors that are outside of our control. This is one that is within our control that we can actually do, and it's relatively inexpensive given the value we'll create. Just would urge us to try and move that one up to the same year.
absolutely. And that's why I'm here. Thank you for your input.
So, am I hearing that you would like us to add the striping for Smoky Hollow to this capital improvement plan?
I would. Sounds like Councilmember Boyles. Drew, what do you think?
Yeah, I have no problems. I've heard nothing but compliments from the impact of the pilot program of what's happened so far.
Yes.
So if we can move forward,
Yeah.
we can. There may be some deferrals we're gonna have to make when it comes to Rec Park, dealing with the county. So that money may not be able to be engaged. That project's probably gonna have to be delayed till next year anyway. So we might just be moving things around.
Right.
But I have no problem.
We also have, as you see, a $500,000 projects reserve that is just there for potentially projects like this.
Yeah, let's just hope that doesn't get sucked up into the contingency of every contract we award, where it's like a little bit extra for you.
So what we could do is we could expedite this as soon as the funding from SB1 arrives, and we could allows us to do the rehab. Immediately, we can go forward and get this project launched.
The other question was, how much do we have in parking in lieu?
I don't think we have any money left.
It's all gone?
Yes, sir. We used the money to design the study. If you remember, it took some time and initiative to do this study and analysis and
Haven't we still had people paying into that fund?
I'm not sure what is the current balance. I have to check with my colleagues. I don't know.
Did they get killed with the new
He's shaking
downtown
his
plan?
head.
Yeah.
Okay,
dead.
he's telling me it's zero. Sorry.
Well, I will, sorry, go ahead. I promised to bring this up this year, so I will, and it seems like the time to, and that is going to a 25% reserve instead of the 15% reserve, or the 13% we had once upon a time. It's fine, we have 25% reserve, but the fact that we keep $2 million on top of it for the Economic Uncertainty Fund seems redundant, because that gives us a 26.5% reserve. So I think that seems to be, that I think had a place in time after 2008 when that was implemented. I think that's just $2 million of taxpayers' money we're not putting to work, and sequestering it there for the 25% reserve is the economic uncertainty.
Right.
So I would say that of our unallocated funds, I would take that 2 million and put it into our unallocated funds and use it exactly for something like this.
I have no problems
Yep.
putting
Shall
it on
we
the
done?
CIP.
See you later.
That's
Yeah.
unanimous.
Walk off with a win.
That's my Costanza rule, leave on a high note.
Absolutely.
Okay. So that was simple. So we can get, we don't have to wait for SB1. We can get the rollers out and start painting.
Okay. All right. So,
I just have to ask, sorry, I think I can ask this about the parking in lieu program. Is that dead then because there's no more funds, or is that still alive? And is that something we ought to revisit going forward?
Thank you, Councilmember Boyles. It's still alive. It's just we haven't had any new projects contribute in a meaningful way since the funds were depleted from the previous project.
Maybe, is that being looked at in the general plan update or no? Is parking
It is
part of
not.
it? It's not.
That fund specifically is part of the Smoky Hollow specific plan, so we did look at it in 2022, 2023 when we revised it, but we didn't make any substantial changes to it.
I think, in my opinion, would be, and we know we've already done our strategic plan, so I don't know if there's room for it. I don't know how my colleagues feel, but I think it's worth looking into what else we can do to enable development, particularly in Smoky Hollow. and afford people the flexibility. Having experienced that firsthand, and if there was a better way to have allocated funds versus doing lists, for example, in my development, I think that would have helped the city more so. It would have helped me. And so, I don't know, I think there's something there to look at, but I don't know if you guys have the bandwidth, but there's probably a reason why it's not being used.
Yeah, it's something, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think, am I right in saying on the planning commission agenda tomorrow that there is an item that talks about in lieu parking? Did I make that up?
There's a code amendment, but not.
Rock and Brew? No?
That is in the downtown specific plan, so different fund. There's two separate funds that exist. But you're right, the Rock and Brews does have an ongoing contribution to the downtown specific plans, specific funding source for in lieu parking. There are a handful of projects over the last couple of years in Smoky Hollow who have contributed. We just haven't seen a large enough volume of redevelopment where folks are having a tough time locating the parking on site.
I think that people don't realize that constraint, that there's a creative way to address that, and they're looking at a lot and they're like, I can't make this pencil. I can't develop this. And so I don't know if it's just not well known. It's particularly in Smoky Hollow or not, but I think it's worth looking at. Because there's a lot of parcels that could be redeveloped that are 5,000 square feet that could work to something much higher and better use.
Yeah. Something we can certainly look at.
So the next slide, I just gave everybody a copy of the proposed 5-year capital improvement program with a larger print. So the very left side of this slide, you see those numbers like number 24, number 35. So that corresponds to the row numbers on what I just gave you. So this is a summary of what is being proposed for the general fund, CIP, and the costs associated with each project. Some of the information is repeat. So the first one is $100,000 for safe routes to school. Again, we are getting $400,000 from Metro grant money. Our share is only $100,000. The second $400,000. This is for the library HVAC maintenance and improvements. $800,000 is for the Joslin Center. We are counting on $803,000 potentially for grant for Joslin Center.
So then, Elias, sorry, on what we're looking at, so that number would go to 0, or the expense is actually 1.6?
1.6.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. And we'll know about the grant, they tell me, by end of this year. So we'll know by end of this year whether or not we're going to have that money or not, basically. One more thing about the grant I just want to mention. They gave us only 1 year to use all the money. So we are trying to tell them, it's really difficult to spend that much money in 1 year because we have to go through a process, and I've explained that to them. So they had a little mercy on me, but we have to work it out with them as we receive the grant. So the next project is Police Department range ventilation, $200,000. Police Department generator, $50,000 this year, and $250,000 next year, which adds up to $50,000 this year, $300,000 next year. So it adds up to $350,000. But the reason you see $50,000 is only $50,000 is only for 26, 27, if that makes sense. This is to look into what model, what kind of electrical, all that stuff. So the next project is $200,000 for the cameras for police department. The next is we decided to reduce this $150,000 to $70,000, or I don't know, 70 or 75. You all decided 70, right? I'm just joking. So the next project, citywide miscellaneous repair. We have that every year. Along with the same thing with roofing, citywide roofing as needs arise, plumbing, and miscellaneous electrical equipment. And project reserve, the $500,000 is what the city manager was talking about, that maybe we could utilize some of that for the Smoky Hollow. So the proposed 26-27 CIP project for all the funds, that means not including just the general fund, all of them, still is in the very bottom of what I gave you. It's the carryover is 15,354,934, which is, I highlighted that in the very bottom row. And then the new projects, 10.8 million. And again, a lot of these projects are carryovers. So, 1.1 million is the transportation fund, and 5.2 million is the proposed enterprise fund appropriations, and so forth. So I'll let you explain that if you like in your own way.
Okay.
Elias, before you go, can I ask one question I saw wasn't on here, which is the COG program for the local travel network phase 2 along Vista Del Mar, but on the county road, it sinks below Vista Del Mar. Is that engineering study I thought was going to be
No,
this year?
that hasn't been done yet. We received a grant from Metro for about $900,000 to do LTN.
That was the phase 1 stuff.
Right.
Okay.
We haven't started the study or engineering on it yet, but that's a big challenge about how to connect. Vista Del Mar is an issue. Douglas is an issue. So we still need to go through that.
I think we know there's there's technically a county road so when you go into El Segundo Beach parking lot, if you bang that immediate left, there's a little county road that runs right next to the power plant, just east of it. That engineering money was supposed to be to look at that road, but that's not programmed.
No, it hasn't started yet.
It hasn't started yet.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
it is programmed, just hasn't started.
That's
I'll
correct.
shut my
But
mouth.
we have $900,000 grant funds for that. That's why you don't see that here. It's the grant funds.
Thank you, Elias.
Thank you.
Just the only thing I'd ask is on the generator that we explore, either leasing and/or resiliency as a service, which is like a SaaS model for guaranteed uptime of power. So there's other options to just buying the hardware, is all I'm saying. And then, did we incorporate any AQMD permitting? Do we have to go through that process again with the generator?
AQMD and whether or not we want to buy something that would require permits is one of the things we're looking at. So with the $50,000, we're going to be looking at alternatives and what's the best way to deal with this. So agreed.
Because I know with the fleet, we're looking at leasing as opposed to owning. Maybe there's an option there, or maybe there's other options out there besides just buying a big generator.
Yes, sir. We'll be looking at that.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Sorry. Oh, no, it's okay. Just want to kind of mirror what Elias mentioned. Just carryovers is $15.3 million. New projects is $10.8 million. That comprises of the various bullets below. I do want to go back to the earlier slide, Council, so that we're all just on the same page. The $900,000 Smoky Hollow, which is currently sitting out in 27-28, we're going to move this into 26-27. So I'm going to add that to next year's budget. So I just want to make sure that gets done. So this number of 2.98 million is going to go up, of course, by another $900,000. Number 2, the Public Works remodel is going to be 70,000, not 150,000. And then lastly, the mayor did mention about the drawdown of the $2 million economic uncertainty fund. It seems like we're going to just not put a $2 million reserve. Just want to make sure that I'm clear there. Okay. All right. Obviously, this number will change because that General Fund 2.98 is going to go up by another $900,000, bringing the total to probably $27 million total in CIPs going into next year with carryovers and new projects. Just to sum up the budget study session, I will be kind of cleaning up everything and all the various direction that council provides. We'll bring it back to the June 2nd budget study session, or budget adoption for the city council to adopt their budget for next year. And that concludes our presentation. Staff is available for additional questions and direction from council. Thank you.
Any other items?
General comments?
Go for it.
Just appreciation to staff, as always, Paul and all the department heads for taking time to roll this up. I just kind of a preview of some of our future conversations. There's 30-plus slides on expenses, which is great, and 1 slide on revenue. And so big picture, revenue growing at 4%, expenses growing at 7%, it's just not sustainable. So I look forward to our conversations about the revenue side of the equation, and I know we'll be having those in the next couple of weeks, actually. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just going to throw it out there again. Is there any, what I'm trying to solve for with this chief of staff concept is we task the city manager with both running the business of the city, so managing the city, as well as dealing with the water board, the county, city, state, Hyperion, EDAC, economic development stuff, federal government things, all those pieces. And from my perspective and in my mind, those are not able to be, both of those jobs are not the same. And so we forego a ton of opportunity or ability to advance our efforts by not reinforcing the executive level of the city to do those things. There's simply, like, there's so many things we say, oh, well, it's Hyperion. Well, what's our remedy for Hyperion gouging us on sewage fees? Well, who's going to do that, right? Like, me in my lunch hour, you in your lunch hour, you in your lunch hour, you know, Elias calling up and yelling at the engineer over there who still thinks he's talking about mosquitoes and tried to give us a mosquito life cycle report the other day. I mean, these are the, you know, right, who water board and county, you know, the county supervisor issues that require attendance. You physically have to be there to get things done. This requires an external facing and an internal facing management apparatus. And I just do not think the way is the city is situated with the amount of importance that we have as a city and the things that we do is adequately aligned for that. So adding some mechanism, and I don't know what that is, because I know it's not an assistant city manager, that went nowhere, but some sort of mechanism to allow for bandwidth in that office to do either an internal or an external function is something I'm trying to solve for.
I like the idea. Mayor, I don't necessarily agree that it's a chief of staff. I think a chief of staff is someone managing a bigger staff. But I think if you think about how we used to use Kobe King pretty extensively, and then we cut his budget back quite a bit. And I know Councilwoman Keldorf was pretty adamant when she was running about the need for external relations and PR. So we experimented with some things in the past, but I think having someone on staff that had the relationships like a Kobe, that knew who to call in LA City, LA County at the highest levels, governor's office had those relationships, or somebody that wants to develop those relationships and further their career. It's probably not someone that's going to last here very long, frankly, but I think it would be useful. I've always said that we punch way above our weight as a city. This city has just got is much different with everything we have in our backyard than any other of the 87 cities in LA County, and we should act differently. We're not Manhattan Beach. We're not Hermosa. We're not Redondo. We're not even Inglewood in some respects in terms of what we have in our backyard. So I agree that we should have something that would help with those relationships.
Yeah, so maybe it's not a new role. Maybe it is a collateral duty of somewhere within the institution if our collective bargaining agreement allows that. Maybe it's an external contracted piece, but I just don't know. But maybe the answer is to ask when the budget comes back to see if there is a line item with an attempt to solve this gap. But I defer to you. I mean, I'm one voice. So does anyone else think it's worth pursuing?
I do, based on what Councilmember Boyles outlined, is more of my thinking than having somebody adding to our personnel in that capacity. I just don't know if that role, it might, but I don't know if that role sits inside City of El Segundo staff or if it's somebody that we're contracting with who is 100% focused on that and already has those existing relationships to go to work for us. But I'm absolutely open to having a discussion about adding a line item.
If I can just add, we've already begun discussions with outside specialists in this area that I'd be happy to bring back. I've actually interviewed 4 different firms, including Kobe, David Herbst, Sorrell and Associates, and Englander and Associates were the 4 that I've talked to already about these external communications and dealing with not only Hyperion, but the county supervisor and the state level and so forth and so on. So I'd be happy to bring that back on June 2nd for further discussion.
So
Chris, it sounds like we're talking about two different things here. I'm hearing lobbyist on one side, and then I'm hearing internal person on the other side. I am not for a lobbyist. I'm just gonna say that right now because I think we've been down that route. And in the end, a lobbyist works for a lot of people, not just one. And if we were gonna make make this job something that we are really gonna have an outward-facing person, it should be someone that's tied here, that's responsible for here, that's paid by here, whose bread is buttered 100% here, in my opinion. Otherwise, that person, we're just dividing that individual up amongst however many clients they have. But I do believe there's a need.
Well, why don't we delegate to our city manager to come up with some proposals and let us know?
Two paths on this, sure.
Okay.
All right, anything further? All right, and the time is 4:01. We are done. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.